just making sure it actually started like it was supposed to.
For public hearing for the first one, you want me to kick it off, and then do you want them to come up and then public hearing after that?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
All the way down the bottom
Yeah, I think
right-hand side.
we'll, yeah, I think it's
they wanted to
For
summarize.
agendas.
yeah. What's different?
Left side. Yep. Hold that.
Put the attorney wing down there.
Put them all. That is down in the other.
So do those two give us
Scroll down
quorum?
and watch.
Change it, but we still don't have any trial.
We're all finished.
So here it is.
No budge on what's happening?
Right.
I've not
Oh, Dan Martin.
for it.
Click on that.
In theory, the trial date is still.
There's the agenda with all the packets.
I had one that was going weekend was Tuesday.
Oh yeah.
This coming Tuesday.
The microphone's on?
And we had, I had
No, it's already
I kind of knew I had them.
And I just checked the
I had them, like even their doctor
the other mic on. Yes.
on
Thank
our
you.
side in this matter. So,
So,
but I would really like.
crunch this
There
down.
was a lot. They gonna say. This could get real dicey. I try. So.
Here we go.
But it resolved as they usually do. What's Shape's over?
It is. Let me see. I'm representing shareholders of a company that had to
Because they were
fire
waiting
their
for Dan.
president.
Are we short of chairs?
Because
Oh, no.
he had a overly cozy relationship
Yeah, because
with the sales company
keep you on your toes.
in which his son was the vice
First come,
president.
first served.
And basically they tried to push my 100% shareholders out of the company and shut them down. Yeah, I always feel like that when I'm on the air too. That's the worst.
Ian won't know what to say.
Not bad about yourself.
Where did Justin?
Justin's gone. I don't, he went out the hall.
And the broken chair.
Seems completely unfair.
And if you didn't want to start. No, it's okay. I'm having. Huh? Yeah.
Hey, good you made it out of the...
Yeah, my sinus infection from last time. Oh my god, it was so bad.
Oh, it was awful.
It was so bad. Yeah, I was down for like 2 days after work and everything. I feel bad. I feel like I'm not in the loop for all the discussions that happened after. They're all here tonight now. I'm like, oh, no. All right. Are you guys ready over there?
Yeah, that'll
Ready?
be much
Ready as we
easier.
can be.
Bless you, bless you, bless you.
Uh-oh.
Bless you.
Yeah, I've never prepared for this trial, but I have the benefit
yeah.
of the fact that nobody else has prepared for the trial.
Okay.
So none of the
All right, we're
attorneys.
going to go ahead and call to order the May 18th, 2016 Ferndale Planning Commission meeting. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Cesar? Here. Baker? Brazen?
Here.
Farr?
Here.
Kelly? Here. Martin?
Here.
Showalter?
Here.
Williamson?
Here.
Chair Rodiger?
Here, and Commissioner Baker indicates she'll be running late, so we expect her shortly. Next up, we have approval of the agenda. Just make sure everyone realized we did get an original agenda that has been amended that has an item A and B under old business. Just make sure that you're looking at the current agenda with the 9 Mile, 430 West 9 Mile as item B under old business. Are there any other modifications, amendments to the agenda?
I move we accept the agenda as amended.
Second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Hi.
All right, we have our agenda set. We do have 2 minutes that we need to approve this evening. The first one is from the March 14th meeting. Are there any proposed changes to that minutes? Otherwise, look for a motion to approve.
I move we approve the minutes of March 14th.
Motion, we have support?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, those minutes are approved. Next up, we have our meeting from last month, April 20th, 2016. Any modifications to those minutes?
One slight modification. The very first public hearing on 146 Stratford Road shows in the ayes that all commissioners voted aye. I was running a little late to that meeting, didn't show up until after that one had been completed.
All right, so we're going to strike Commissioner Williamson from the ayes under the first public hearing. Any other modifications? Okay, so we have a motion for the amended minutes.
I move that we approve the amended minutes of April 20th.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next up, we have public hearings. This evening, we have 4 public hearings. Just for those in the audience to know, if you've been to a planning commission meeting or not, when we open up an item, we'll introduce the item here, up here at the table. We'll have staff give a brief introduction. We'll have the applicant give a brief introduction of the project as well. At that point, we'll open up the public hearing to the general public. Anyone who wishes to speak, please come up to the podium, state your name and address, address your comments to the commission. We will take your comments, and at the end of the public hearing, the commission will address the comments with the applicant and with staff. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, and again, keep your comments directed to the Planning Commission. Again, we have 4 public hearings this evening. All of those actions are 2 special land uses and 2 rezonings. This body is a recommending body to City Council, so any decision we make on those 4 public hearings is a recommendation from us to City Council. City Council is the final body for each of those decisions. So with that, we're going to start with our first public hearing. We have a public hearing for 567 Livernois Street, a special land use. Justin, can you give us a little introduction
Yes.
from this last meeting?
Yes. Good evening. As the chair mentioned, we are talking about a site plan and special land use approval for 567 Livernois. The applicant presented a site plan and special land use application last month to improve the building, the existing building, for use as a production facility with office, storage, a tap room. Those uses are permitted uses in the mixed-use 2 district in the Livernois corridor. And then the applicant's special land use application was for an outdoor seating area, which outside of the central business district, that requires a special land use and public hearing. At that meeting, we discussed general site layout, parking design, hours of operation, proximity to nearby residential areas, and the public hearing was also held, and the applicant was asked, or tabled the agenda item based on feedback from the commission to explore a shared parking agreement, reevaluate the off-street parking lot on site, revise the outdoor seating configuration, and look at on-street parking on Livernois. Since that time, the applicant has met with staff and discussed all of those instances and issued a revised site plan that was included in your packets. And I believe the applicant will show a site plan that has a few brief modifications from that tonight as well. As I said, the property is zoned mixed use 2, and in the future land use plan, or master land use plan, future land use of the site is classified as South Livernois sub area, so encouraging redevelopment of underutilized properties and providing a walkable pedestrian environment, encouraging people to stay and enjoy the corridor, and other uses that are encouraged as part of that rezoning were retail and other ways to redevelop properties like that. Specifically for the site, the existing parking lot, as I said last time, is non-compliant, deteriorated as part of the old industrial use. The off-street parking lot's been reconfigured. As you saw in your packet, the parking lot has been adjusted so that there's proper handicap parking spaces as well as additional green space. The applicant added 3 trees to that green space to provide more shade and buffer as part of the landscape plan requirements. Specifically with parking, the Axel Brewing had cited the city's recent investment on Livernois and infrastructure with on-street parking, bicycle lanes, and other traffic calming measures as a reason they chose Livernois. And as I mentioned last time, the business plan focuses on being a walkable neighborhood amenity, including bike rides and encouraging patrons to access the property on foot, although they do have a number of parking on-street parking spaces along Livernois, and the applicant researched and counted over 30 parking spaces on street on Livernois, as the commission requested that they research exactly how many spaces were there. Also on site, as mentioned previously, there's a 24-space bicycle rack provided on site, encouraging others to use non-motorized transportation to access the site, and also dedicated stroller spaces, encouraging families to come to the property nearby as well. The bicycle rack and stroller area has been reconfigured slightly to separate the bicycle rack by a masonry wall from the stroller seating, providing easy access for cyclists to pull right into the property and lock up their bike to access the business. The site is also within a 6-minute walk of Smart Bus Stop on West 8 Mile Road as well, and a DDOT bus stop at the edge of Livernois. Previously, the site plan also was to include moving a pedestrian crosswalk that was installed as part of the Livernois improvements. Since that time, the applicant met with the city engineer and Department of Public Works, and they found a better solution in actually just moving the fire hydrant instead of the pedestrian crossing, which helps reconfigure the parking lot for the site. As I mentioned earlier, screening and landscaping were also reviewed again. Our arborist report was included in the packet and accurately described the number of invasive species on the property. The applicant is proposing to keep the red oak that is at the adjacent to Livernois, and then also, as I mentioned earlier, adding 3 trees to the parking lot as well to provide more screening and sound buffer as well. No changes to, and then the applicant also proposed more shrubs to be surrounding the outdoor seating area, and adding a parking lot light to the reconfigured parking lot as well. That light meets the city's environmental standards and lighting standards as well. Building design, not much had changed there. The waste receptacle is being brought up into code, being screened with masonry enclosure and cedar wood gate. And then the outdoor seating area, as you can see on the site plan, has been reconfigured, lessening the capacity, and then providing more screening around it and protection and separation from the parking lot as well. Aside from that, the special land use approval, just to remind everyone, is specifically for the outdoor seating area. With any outdoor seating area outside of the Central Business District, special land use approval is required. And specifically in those districts, amplified noise is prohibited after 10 p.m. The applicant is well aware of the noise ordinance, and just like any other business owner or resident in the city, they would have to abide by that ordinance as well. So I guess to wrap it up quickly, and I'll let the applicant kind of go through any other summary discussion, but the shared parking agreement that was submitted today also provides more off-street parking that was requested by the Planning Commission in over 40 more spaces off-street, in addition to the parking that is on site. The applicant study showed 34 on-street spaces available on Livernois to meet capacity needs off-peak from most of the district, and all focused on Livernois, not in the neighborhoods. And I think that their willingness to be flexible in those improvements has shown that they're interested in being a community partner. This is the first use of this kind that has been proposed in the mixed-use 2 districts since it was rezoned back in, I believe, 2008. So it's the first business that we had to consider parking for a building that's been deemed functionally obsolete. And so that's not to say that future uses, would be looked at the same way if there was another special land use that came about. But their flexibility and quick readiness to make those changes and come back to this board, I think shows that they're interested in being a community partner. But
All right, thank you. If the applicant, if you come up to the podium, if you could, I know we were here a month ago at this, but if you could just give a brief kind of overview of what you're proposing for those who weren't in attendance at the last meeting. But more importantly, if you want to elaborate on anything that Justin has spoken on in terms of what has changed since the last time we saw you.
Yeah, thanks. Hello again. It's good to see you guys. So we're excited. A lot of the changes that were recommended last time were things that when we started to manifest them actually worked really well for us, particularly the reconfiguration and scaling in the parking lot. It's something we're really happy with and excited about. So we looked at it as a great opportunity to modify a few things and make them work a little better for us as well. My name's Dan Riley. I'm the president of Axel Brewing Company. My partners, Gary Debkowski and Carolyn Bellinson, are also here. And my wife, the chief therapist on the Axel Brewing Company team as well, Amy, and our team from Patrick Thompson Design. What we've envisioned, and many of you have probably read about in some of the press or in the packets, was creating a real neighborhood destination, a tap room where we would have small manufacturing, public tap room, and a small seasonal outdoor beer garden. A place where people could gather. We see a lot of pedestrian traffic, a lot of cycling traffic. We really fell in love with the Livernois corridor. We think it's green spaces, the light, the proximity to everything happening in the Livernois 6 Mile area and the downtown area was all extremely appealing to us. We also are big fans of this community. My wife and I are sending our son to Fernando Public Schools in the fall, and we love the energy around the downtown, but we also saw a need for what we were doing to definitely be in a less populated, dense area in order to achieve what we wanted. So the biggest things that I would echo from Justin, you'll see a significant reconfiguration of the parking lot. I know there are some concerns about the entry and out for maximum safety. We've addressed those. We have secured a firm, formal parking agreement from one of Ferndale's more prevalent landowners, I would say, directly across the street for 33 spaces. We've got an additional 10 with an informal agreement with a friend of one of our partners about a block down. In addition, Patrick and his team have identified, I believe it's 32 spaces within 500 feet of the building. And additionally, we've got deep clarification on some of the questions about the landscape plan and some of the capacity. The capacity of the beer garden has been reduced significantly with the change in configuration. We're thrilled to be back here again. We're ready to start construction and become, what we've intended to do. We know this will be a catalyst for the neighborhood. We know that brewery projects similar with a family-friendly community focus in many communities have become catalyst projects, and ours is certainly no different. We are a brand that has very strong values and are looking forward to being a good neighbor.
All right, thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Do we have any initial questions for the applicant before we open up the public hearing? Okay, thank you. All right, at this time I want to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Again, if you wish to speak to the commission on this item, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Just feel free to come in. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Fernandez, and I'm a homeowner at 342 Stratford. It's about 2 blocks away from the proposed location. I'm super excited about it because I feel like there's some development coming from 9 Mile to my neighborhood, and I think of Batch Brewing in Corktown and Cultivate in the Ypsilanti area. It's a great place for people of different generations to meet, enjoy themselves in an open-air environment, and I'm really excited about these people coming and being open to some changes to help with the community. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. My name is Donald Place, and the residence I'm concerned is 630 Stratford. My house is in back of that, in back of the bar. And there's many things I'm worried about, because I just want to take some lipstick off this pig and some perfume off of it. This is a bar with a patio that's going to serve alcohol, okay? We all know that. We all know that, Justin, okay? You can smirk, but you know what it is. You did a good presentation of a good cover-up, okay? And you've been really good at this. So we know about he doesn't have enough parking. And we know he needs parking desperately. And we know what the outcome will be with the patio and the drinking and the noise from the patio. And we know our property values that live in back of a bar will go down. And we know our neighborhood is fragile. And we're already struggling, residents are struggling. And we know Ferndale has enough bars, but we know this is an issue about the bar, it's about the patio. So I'll get on to the issue. Okay. The issue is the parking and the mess. This isn't downtown, there are residents here. There are houses on this street. There are people parking all up and down the streets. There are future businesses and businesses that want to be here that their chances will be cut slim because of this. Okay. We know that we don't have a downtown where they can go and clean up all the mess and water the plants and the flowers. We're stuck with all of the crap that's left over from the party from the bar. Okay? We got to live in this. And no, I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy about a patio. And when the other people see what's going on, you don't even say on this literature it's a bar and pass this out to people only 300 feet from the building. How are people going to even know about this? You're doing a really good job of covering up this. You should be ashamed of yourself.
So can you wrap it up, please?
Hi, my name is Eric Charosky. I live at 2932 Inman, which is a distance from the tap room, but we're excited about it, and we have a tap room eventually going to open at the end of my street, and it's Urban Rest, and we're excited about it, and it's going to add to the neighborhood, and it's going to add to the community, and it's going to add to the value of Ferndale to a younger demographic, I think. So we're excited about it, and we can't wait for it to open.
Thank you.
My name is Gail Krause. I'm here to represent my mother. She could not come tonight. She's at 715 Livernois in Ferndale. And she objects to it because of the crime, the lack of parking. She knows because we've lived there for many, many years. So she objects because there's not enough parking and that the crime will go up and the noise levels. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. How are you? My name is Rasan Orea. I own Body Morph Gym at 561 Livernois, right to the left of the bar. So I'm probably the closest, including with you guys. And, you know, neighborhoods, guys, are like ant farms. You know, when something pops up in a neighborhood, the beauty of that is that nothing's planned. Little things pop up here and there, and that's the beauty of uniqueness. And then one thing leads to another, and it creates something called a swerve effect. And a swerve effect is when somebody comes and sees one thing, and then they see another place, and as they go by it, they say, shit, I'm going to swerve into the business that's right near there. And then it starts to multiply, and new things happen, and before you know it, you got a new neighborhood. And Livernois doesn't have anything but, in my opinion, a few stores, a cat practice, nothing on the corner at all. I think, to me, in my opinion, this is going to raise property value, because when something nice happens in the neighborhood, especially of 10,000, 11,000 square feet, whatever that building is, I remember back in the day I looked at it to buy, but it couldn't at the time. I can't wait for a developer to come in and say, gee, maybe we can put something on top of that, and one thing, you put a 2-level housing unit, and then they buy us all out and pay us. I don't see how that could ruin a neighborhood. As far these guys seems like they're pretty stand-up people, I would assume, and if a bar is closing, it's my understanding, around 11 o'clock at night, I can't imagine stuff getting way out of hand to where people are hopping over fences and doing whatever. And from a business owner on my end, I applaud it. I mean, I have a gym on one side and a bar on the other. How cool is that? And a place where people can go get some food and come and, and that, as long as it's, I was going to suggest the Peterson parking building across the street to rent. I live in California part of the time, and I know none of the places out there have parking that are sufficient to what goes by the ratio of the place at all. And you rent it. You hire a valet if it's, to make sure everything, or not, but you keep it contained and you keep it done right. There's plenty of parking up and down Livernois where I can't see anybody even going on to the next street. As far as my business is concerned, when I have my boot camp and my people come in, I'll throw a couple red cones up in front and nobody will park there. And if they don't, I'll just flex my biceps and I'll have to leave. But provided I get a beer. Anyways, I don't know. I think I applaud new things happening. I think Ferndale needs new things. I'm going to wrap it up. I don't have a problem with it at all. I think that it's going to be done right, and visually it could be a cool thing, and new stuff could happen on that. It could be a great segue for as people come in over 8 Mile onto Livernois, that stretch before they get to 9 Mile. That could be a great little corridor where people come and say, wow, this is a cool place, instead of some of the trash, to be quite honest, that we got going on there right now. That just doesn't look, they're eyesores. So, maybe the bar, who knows if that's everybody's favorite thing, but man, you go to Birmingham, I grew up in Birmingham, and there's stuff up and down Old Woodward there, and there's houses that go up there, and man, when they got parades and stuff going on there, you got people that park there, but that's life, that's progress. We can't stall progress now. So, anyways.
Thank you.
Good to meet you guys. We'll meet soon.
Hi, my name's Kevin Hickey. We're one of the owners at Peterson Glass. We're right across the street from the proposed brewery. Our concern is that our parking lot will be used and that it would increase liability potentially for us, and there might be some increase in vandalism, but we're very concerned about the increased possible liability. I know there's parking on the street and stuff, but they're going to park in our lot. I'm just curious how that's going to be handled.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Susan Thomas, and I'm a resident at 578 Kensington, which obviously doesn't back right up to the proposed bar. But my concern, and I'm all for progress and improving, that corridor. But my concern is the noise and the potential for crime and drugs. And I have friends that live not far from the new Rosie O'Grady's, and they feel they can't use their outdoor space in the summer because the noise is horrendous. I appreciate the fact that you're trying to improve that corridor and bring in additional revenue for the city, which helps us all. But for me, quality of life for the citizens of this community has to come first. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to address commission? Good evening.
I'm Matt Rathbun. I live at 720 Farmdale. I'm actually really excited to hear about this brewery getting put in. I feel like it's kind of sad that we live in such a great state for beer, and I don't have a local brewery besides I guess the WAB to walk to or anything like that. Especially considering I came from Grand Rapids, where it's just every other block, it seems like there's just a nice neighborhood brewery to go to. So I'm really excited to hear this is coming in. And yeah, I feel like adding a patio would be a really awesome addition. I feel like all these concerns I've heard about, like crime and like about how it's a bar or whatever. I feel like if you just make like a building and just completely enclose it, it's just going to be a dark, dreary place where people get drunk. But if you make it like, if you have an outdoor space, it's a place where people can get together, can gather, and it's open to the community. So, yeah, so thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, Jim Hickey, also one of the owners of Peterson Glass. We're concerned about the liability of our lot being used on off hours. I was curious, they had talked about proposal of a 33 car lot across the street. I'm not sure if that was referring to us or somebody else, so if you could just clear up whose lot that was being used. That'd be, just want to make sure it wasn't misunderstanding that it was our lot.
Okay,
Again, we're for progress also, but we just don't want to carry on the liability that something like this would bring to our business.
Thank you. Good evening.
Robert Porter, 855 Marshfield, Ferndale, Michigan. I haven't seen all the plans, so I am concerned, one, with noise. Obviously, you know that I was always pro-development in our community, and we had concerns with people along the Troy corridor and so forth and so on, but they bought next to a downtown, and we understand the people in that area bought in a residential neighborhood. It was pretty much buffered. Secondly, the concern is in parking, as Peterson Glass discussed. We can count the parking spaces on Livernois, but for example, at the corner of Livernois and Marshfield is what's known as the Purple Door, which is actually a renown. It was voted best in Detroit tea room. And they're very limited in space, where they have 25 or 30 people come in. As a result, from their group sessions, we have no parking on Marshfield during that period of time. And parking on Livernois is limited. There are businesses that operate. There are residents that use that as their parking in front of their homes and so forth and so on. The Chamber of Commerce had their welcome lunch in there. I actually parked cars for them that day, so they were able to facilitate the needs in that area. With an establishment such as it, as well with an outside venue, there tends to be an increase in problems. Some of the problems that we've had against the downtown area have included glass bottles, in some cases condoms, things of this nature that a bar mentality can bring. I'm not saying it will, but it can bring into the area. I think before any vote in the positive for that outdoor space and that type of development has to a real reevaluation of the parking, and secondly, their plans for maintaining security in the area.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Christine Villegas. I own the Purple Door Tea Room, and parking is our big concern. And we have, on occasion, 30, 40 people who come, and we do have evening events. So our concern is parking. I don't see where you see 30 parking spaces on Livernois. FLAX takes up a great deal of that parking, and then we take up the parking, and with the bar, parking is really going to be critical. We lost 3 parking spaces with the crosswalk and the bike rack in front of our building, so we've been even reduced from when we bought our building. So that parking issue is something that really needs to be considered. Also, we try to be very respectful of our neighbors up and down Marshfield. They're very accommodating. They're wonderful with us. Sometimes they let us park people in their driveway, but parking truly is something that should be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you guys doing? My name's John Stowe. I'm at 620 Stratford. I'm literally like behind it to the corner. Yes, I'm concerned about noise. I'm literally behind it. I haven't seen any plans aside from what I saw on your Instagram, I think, of your, I'm sorry, they talked about that. Only person I saw was the plans for on their Instagram. Noise and parking, I'm just concerned that my street's gonna turn into a parking lot like Troy or like Hazelhurst at when Glow and Eden were there. That's just a major concern. I mean, that's it.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Good evening.
I live at 364 Fielding. My name is Jen. I actually know these gentlemen pretty well. I feel like they're really responsible business owners. The street I live on is currently packed all the time at night, especially when people come home from work, and we seem to make it work. I don't think the parking is going to be an issue, you know, in the day and age where everybody rides their bike here and Uber is available. I don't think it's an issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Matt Ward. I live at 564 Stratford, so that's directly behind you guys. I'm pro-investment, and I think I'm excited about it. I think it'll be a good thing. The 10 o'clock closing time during the weekdays, that works for me. I'm pro. I'm in favor.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes? Good evening.
Hi.
I'm Dana Zarowski. I live at 2932 Inman, and we are on kind of the opposite end of the street, but I would like to point out that a bar and a tap room I think are very different entities. It's a very different kind of demographic that they're serving. My husband and I are huge beer advocates, beer people. We take beercations. Grand Rapids is a great weekend getaway for us. We were in Chicago a couple weeks ago, and they have 0 parking. Yet the tap rooms and beer gardens in Chicago were packed at, Saturday afternoon. I think this is a great thing for the city, especially if we're trying to do something along that Livernois corridor. We go downtown and they abut neighborhoods downtown. They have pedestrian traffic, bike traffic, and stroller traffic, and they have outdoor seating with great beer and great food. And so that's what I would rather have in my own backyard than having to go downtown. So, thanks. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jim Kitlinski. I live at 860 Marshfield. It seems to me from everything that I've seen related to this tap room that this isn't going to be a rowdy bar where a lot of crime happens. This is going to be a tap room where people can just go and enjoy, the weather outside. They can enjoy a little bit of beer and have a good time without going crazy. I think that concerns about noise, concerns about parking, they're certainly valid, but I don't think that they're going to be nearly as large of concerns as some people who are opposed to this seem to be making it out. In general, I think this was going to revitalize that corridor, and I think that this is going to be great for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Tim Thayer. I have a business just a couple doors away from this business, and my concern is like almost the opposite in that for a while we had one of the businesses across the street from us was empty, the balloon factory, and while that was empty for about 6 months or so, what happened is immediately people came in and started stripping things from the building and literally ruined, parts of the building. And, so my concern is if they're not there, who is there? I mean, what I don't want is empty buildings on the street because that's sort of the detriment to me there. So that's my concern.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the commission?
Can I just add
discussed the Woodward Avenue proposed restaurant yet, have you?
No, we're on item number 1, the public hearing for Livernois. Okay. Anyone else who wishes to speak on the Livernois public hearing, actual brewing?
Question, how many capacity does the beer room have for people? They said they have 32 parking spots, but what would the capacity of customers be?
We'll discuss that up here at the, so, all right. Seeing no other movement here this evening, I do want to also mention for the record, in addition to those that are here present this evening, City Hall did receive 1 phone call. We received 16 letters on this topic. And of those 16 letters, I don't want to go through and read them all, but I would classify 11 in favor, 4 against, and 1 in the middle. Couldn't really decipher it was 4 against. It was a little bit of both. So again, there are 16 letters and 1 phone call, and we'll include those in the record as part of the public hearing this evening as well. And with that, I want to go ahead and close the public hearing, and if the applicant could come back up to the podium, and we'll go through the comments that were mentioned. First and foremost, I just want to say, on behalf of this project, and any public hearing that comes before the community, whether it be rezoning, special land use, this city, like every other city in the state of Michigan, is required to notice 300 feet to all property owners. And so that is what we do for every public hearing. In addition, the agenda, which includes the site plan, is available on our website. You can, right now, at the comfort of your seats, pull up the agenda and see the site plan on the city's website. Justin, is there a way to put it on the screen at all?
Yeah.
If we can just, for a background for everyone,
I can't read that.
so that everyone can see the plan that we're talking about. So on the graphic that is up there, Livernois is to the south.
View in full screen.
I can see it right.
Did I vote?
Sorry.
I thought I did.
First
I
time
was
using
reading those
computers.
letters, like, oh, I have to check with you. Yeah, and I apologize, we probably should have had this up earlier, but so here is the site plan for the site. Again, Livernois is to the south, so looking at the graphic, you have north is to the right. So the building is in gray, so essentially the building backs up to the residential street to the west. The outdoor seating is kind of in the middle at the crook of the L that the building creates. And the parking, revised parking, which is separate or different from the one that was presented to us at our last meeting, is along the northern portion of the property closest to Livernois. And please note that essentially the building goes from end to end, north to south of the property. So there really isn't anything immediately abutting the residential in terms of patio, parking, anything of that nature. It's essentially the back of a building as it currently is today. In terms of parking and capacity, could you please clarify, I think the off-street, the off-site parking agreements that you've obtained, how many of those are, how many parking you have on site, the building, please.
Yes, the capacity for the building itself, the tap room, 97, and we have 72 seats in the scaled-down beer garden. The spots in the lot are 5 plus 1 ADA. And you'll note we also accommodated for a turnaround spot as well because of some of the concerns. There are 32 parking spots on Livernois, public parking spots within 500 feet of the building. Additionally, we have secured a formal agreement it is not directly across the street. It is one building to the south and across the street from Tom Perlman. There are 33 spots, and the letter submitted gives you a pretty detailed breakdown of those spots. Additionally, we have 10 spots from a building about a block to the north. So a total of 43 secured spots.
So to summarize, you have 6 spaces on site and 43 spaces off-site, not on the road, but on private property,
Yes.
off-site, for a total of 49 spaces on private property.
Yes.
How many employees do you plan on having once again?
At peak times, we would have about 15 people on the site. That will vary, obviously, but that would be at peak time. During the day, there will be as little as 4.
And will employees be directed to park at the
Yes.
the 10 spaces that are off-site?
Yes, absolutely.
If I may, through the chair, I can't put my hands on the parking agreement letter. Which Tom Perlman building did you get an agreement on? Is it the Pride building?
It's the building with the wallpaper company and the balloon factory. There is actually a large secured lot. Some people don't notice, behind or kind of just to the north of the building, another lot in front and another lot to the south.
It's on the table this evening. It's probably under the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was his.
And
Well, you can share.
through the chair, distance-wise, that's within 350 feet.
And our ordinance does allow for public on-street parking within 500 feet, correct?
Correct.
And to clarify, you said there was 34?
32.
Justin had 34 earlier. We only have
32.
32.
Okay, so let's say 33. So there's 33 on-street parking on Livernois.
And you have that detailed analysis.
Yes.
From the overhead.
And if I may, I'm sorry, one more time through the chair. What are your signage plans to direct people to that lot, other than it looking like the place that exists today? Do you have plans to direct traffic there?
Yeah, we'll work with Tom on appropriate signage to make sure that people are aware that is acceptable parking for Axel Brewing, and we'll have signage in our parking lot as well.
And through the chair, you said that there were 15 employees during peak hours. When are those peak hours?
I imagine peak hours will be in the evenings on the weekends.
Okay.
Probably between 7 and 10, 8 and 10. But that remains to be seen. But that would be what I'd anticipate. I would say, during our weekday hours, we anticipate, having, 70% capacity on a very good night. And then we'll have we hope we will have very good traffic during the day on the weekends. But we anticipate that being a lot of pedestrian and a lot of walk-up traffic, especially during the summer season.
Okay. In terms of the questions from the Peterson Glass Company across the street, so hopefully that answers your question about where the off-site locations are. In terms of private property, so they have the right to sign and restrict parking on your property, just like any private property has the ability to restrict parking on their property. So that would, I think, in terms of this development, they're not looking to your property at all for any type of parking. So anything beyond that would be on your private property. If you
and to clarify, when we were reaching out to neighbors, I did reach out to Kevin and spoke to him and described the project and left my number if they had an interest in engaging in a shared parking agreement.
Yeah, it's not worth the increased liability to us, so the compensation.
Listen, it's really between two private property owners if you guys want to work that out.
How is the parking going to be directed away from the lot?
Well, again, the discussion is here. As we just discussed, they were going to have signage on their facility about parking available at the Perlman lot or whatever it's going to be referred to.
And Sarah, maybe a clarification. I would assume if there's another private business on the street, they would have to have signage about no parking on their lot.
Right. Like I said, if they want to have no parking on their lot and have that to be enforceable with they sign that on their property. In terms of other things that were brought up, as I said, parking I think was a big discussion that we've had at our last meeting. I'm pleased with the progress you've made. I know we had quite a bit of discussion about the parking in the front yard and the kind of the one-way. You said flip that 90 degrees, and I think that helped. They said a lot of the concerns that we had with the pedestrian crossing, the visibility coming out of the site, and actually bringing that patio closer to Livernois.
Yeah, I mean, we really, I believe, Krista, you had made a point about just the kind of the ordinance versus having the parking in front of the building versus the intention of the use. And the more Patrick and his team started to look at it, I'll admit, when I left here last time, I thought visually I was struggling. And then when they kind of came forward and we put this together, we thought about the confluence and the back and forth between the buildings and the ability for someone to walk past and like look right into that patio area, and it just ended up working a lot better. So thank you. We had a lot of smiles on our face.
You got away from the tree a little bit more.
Yeah, you got to save the tree and that.
Yeah, that tree was really critical for us. So Leslie, our civil engineer, did some great work.
In terms of the, you have essentially 3 curb cuts, which are all existing. I know one is for the dumpster and one is for kind of a loading. Are you going to have no parking indications? How are you going to prevent people from parking there, I guess, on your peak times?
In front of the curb cuts?
No, on your property, in front of the dumpster and in front of your patio by the stroller and bike parking where your driveway's
Oh,
going
yeah,
into your site.
we would have signage, and we'll also have, there will be a gate that'll come across the front of the beer garden area, correct?
Yeah, I mean, so the one curb cut for the parking lot, and the next one is the one that will be during the day, will be for loading, but it'll really, when that gate that's right by the entry vestibule will be closed, it'll really appear like a pedestrian walkway. It'll be very clear, especially with the brick paver material. It'll be very clear that that is
So it's a different material.
Totally different material, and then we'll have signage by the dumpster saying, you know, that's not, no parking allowed there.
Okay. Are there other questions from the commission?
Through the chair, just for everyone's knowledge, can you repeat the timeframes in which you feel you will be operating, days and timeframes?
Yeah, our initial plan, weekdays, likely open will be around 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Closing, pardon me?
Just address the commission.
Oh, no, I thought one of you guys asked me a question. 4 p.m., closing at 10 p.m., Friday nights till 11. Saturdays, we will likely be open from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m., no later than 11 p.m., I might add. We're just debating whether we'll have, you know, a brunch option for cyclists and open a little earlier on the weekends. And then Sunday, 10 to probably 7, maybe 10 to 8. We'll have to work with our general manager on specific programming. And that's the plan. We don't, you know, our business isn't necessarily a lunch-specific business at this point. So that during the week, it wouldn't be a big focal point.
Through the chair, if you could also go over your food options.
Yeah, we're working with a partner, and we're working on a final details of our agreement, but I can share it with you. Some of you may be familiar with Corridor Sausage. They're a Detroit-based food wholesaler, and we're designing a very simple but funky menu that will include a mix of gourmet products from his group. And there'll actually be a walk-up window in service inside the facility, essentially a captive food truck, but it'll be a full kitchen facility inside the space. And we'll have some ability to be flexible and creative with some brunch items, some special options and dinners. And one thing that might just be helpful, I think council or the commission probably understands this, but some of the commenters had mentioned, you know, that the tap room is a very different experience than what most people see as a bar. And I've echoed that a lot. I think a lot of you have probably read that in the press. And it is a very, very different business model. People drink beer and they drink hard cider, but it's a very different environment than what has come to be described tonight.
Okay, thank you. Councilor, no question. The discussion is between the commission and the applicant. We had our public hearing, and now at this point, the question and answer is between the dialogue between the applicant and the commission. Thank you. Other questions from the commission or comments, clarifications? It was brought up, obviously, we talked about parking, crime, noise. I think there's always a thought when, you know, something happens, when change happens, property values going down. But I think the commission generally feels that redevelopment and reinvestment in the community is going to help bring property values up. I think a successful Ferndale, successful businesses and residential neighborhood, I think continue to make Ferndale a desirable community in Metro Detroit, and I think that will help towards that. In terms of the noise ordinance, I know you spoke to that a little bit earlier. Justin, can you elaborate again on the regulations? It's at 10 p.m., is it?
It's either 10 or 11 p.m. Yes, I believe it's 10.
I think it says 10 in our findings.
So specifically for seats for mixed use to anything outside of the CBD is 10 p.m. Yes.
So any type of amplified speaker sound would have to be turned off by 10 p.m. and that would be listed as one of conditions if there's a motion that moves forward.
Absolutely.
Other questions or clarifications? Again, this evening, we do have our first action is a special land use motion. Again, this is a recommendation from the commission to the council for the outdoor seating element of this business. There's a proposed findings and conditions in the packet. But essentially, as part of a special land use, the reason a use is a special land use is that there could be particular conditions that the commission or council find that would make that particular use comply with the city's master plan, be compatible with neighboring uses, with the neighborhood, not be unreasonably impactful to resources such as police and fire, health, safety, welfare, things of that nature. And again, time limitations can be part of a condition, and they have indicated this evening that they have, I think, 11 p.m. is the latest. So even if that was set into a condition, if that were to change in the future, they'd have to come back and another public hearing would have to be held if that were to be changed. After a special land use, if that moves forward, we do have this evening a site plan motion, which is the Planning Commission's purview. The site plan is essentially the plan that was shown up on the, not that, but that this evening. And again, as part of this request, there is a reduction of parking requirements, which, as Justin mentioned earlier today, I think any business along Livernois corridor would have to receive a variance of parking based on existing conditions. We've been thinking about the Purple Tea Room. I'm not sure how many parking spaces are available on property there, but again, we have an example of a successful business in the community that we want to promote more of. And so it's through these on-street parking that the city proactively went out and got a grant to provide those on-street parkings, and with neighborly shared parking agreements that we can hopefully accommodate growth in a way that doesn't negatively impact the residential neighborhoods. So that would be a third motion, and again, that would be a motion that lies with the Planning Commission as well. So there would be one recommendation to council. Again, that would be for the outdoor patio, and then a site plan and a parking modification. So with that, any additional questions of staff or the applicant? We'll entertain a motion.
I do actually, may I, through the chair, one question for staff. Has the residential parking permit program been talked about at all for the neighboring neighborhoods?
Assistant city managers kind of been leading that charge and focused more on the downtown, but I think it's something that we could definitely have a discussion about it, if there's an interest in this area.
All right, thank you.
I'll make a motion to recommend to City Council to approve the special land use based on plans and application dated and received by the Planning Commission on May 9th, 2016, with the following findings and subject to the following conditions. Should I read the findings and conditions? No? Okay.
As stated in the packet.
As stated in the packet. And the condition is the amplified noise prohibited after 10 o'clock in the MXD2 district.
Second that.
Okay. We have a motion and support. Is there any discussion on the motion? Can we go ahead and do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Czar?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Brazen?
Yes.
Farr?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Showalter?
Yes.
Williamson?
Yes.
Chair Rodiger?
Yes. All right, great. Motion is unanimously recommended to council. So coordinate with Justin on when that will go back to council. I don't know when their next available agenda would be. Would the public notice of that meeting as well?
They would.
Okay, so anyone within the 300 feet will get notice of that meeting, and then people who signed in the back as well?
Yes, if anyone signed in or has not done so already, please do, and you'll be on the notification list as well.
If anyone's interested in going to that city council meeting, please sign in the back, and we will make sure to notice you of that meeting. All right, again, on this evening, we still have 2 additional motions on this topic. Any questions on the site plan?
I'll move in the matter of 567 Livernois, the Planning Commission approved the site plan based on plans dated received by the Planning Department on May 9th, 2016, with the conditions and findings listed in the packet, including the, yeah, that's it.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Questions, clarifications?
I have a question. I know when the bike lanes and so on were put in, that was
the first pass and that eventually it was going to be redone and resurfacing. Do you know when that's scheduled for?
I believe 2018 will be a full resurfacing, and the bike lanes will stay in some fashion. There may be another configuration that we may consider, and definitely open to feedback on anyone who may have a bike rack in a former parking space. We're open to that dialogue as well.
And is there any estimate of how long that construction will go on for?
Typically, for a project that big, it is start in May and probably end October, November. So that's the schedule for Hilton right now. I'd assume it'd be pretty similar for Livernois.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, other clarifications, questions? All right, let's go ahead and take all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next up, we do have the modification for the parking requirements. Just to clarify, do we know what the total number is on that? So with the off-street.
The findings could be corrected to say showed 32 on-street Livernois spaces. And then the shared parking agreement, I believe the grand total was 43.
Correct.
10 staff and 33 public. Sorry, 10 staff and 33 public.
43 off-street shared parking.
That's great.
I'm just not going to make a motion for conversation.
I understand. All right, is anyone questions, clarifications, or a motion?
I'll move in the matter of 567 Livernois that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the reduction of parking requirements based on the plans dated, received by the Planning Department on May 9, 2016, with the findings and conditions as stated in the packet.
Second?
I have a second, but with a question. Rather than recommending approval, this would be that the Planning Commission approve the reduction in parking requirements, correct? This doesn't have to be a recommendation to council, right?
Right, this would just be an
This is approval.
Yeah, move for approval.
Yes.
Okay, so just clarify.
Second.
Okay. All right, any questions, clarifications?
I just have a statement to make, if I may. I'm not going to support this one because I like this project. There's a lot I like about it. I'm not convinced the parking solution's there yet, though. And while this particular piece doesn't go to council, I'm sure parking will come up for discussion in council. So between now and then, we can have further discussion and exploration. I'd like to see more protections for the residents in that solution. So I won't be supporting this one. I understand that doesn't go on, but I expect parking will be a hot topic at City Council.
I'd like to second that comment. I do appreciate that there's parking and strollers, and I know you're going to get a lot of pedestrians, which will take the burden off of cars, but I also think that parking hasn't been solved, so I will not be supporting it.
Okay.
Just for a statement through the chair, I admire the movement, the processes that you went to secure additional parking. I think that's admirable. I think given the nature and the city's plan for that area with density and stuff, I think you're meeting those, and I think you're creating more desirability in that area.
And just kind of point of clarification, I don't know if you can answer this, Justin, or if I can maybe. Do we know how many private parking spaces, for example, like the Purple Door Tea Room has?
I do not, no.
5? So you have 5 parking spaces on your property. Okay, all right, thank you. All right, other questions, clarifications? All right, let's go ahead and take a roll call vote for this one, please. This is to approve the parking modification as proposed.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Brazen?
Yes.
Farr?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Martin?
No.
Showalter?
Yes.
Williamson?
Yes.
Azar?
No.
And Chair Rodiger?
Yes. Okay, that motion passes. All right, good luck. I'd be in touch with Justin for your city council date. And when do you anticipate potentially opening for business?
We are very focused on mid-September. Obviously, we've got a lot of work to do ahead of us, but we hope to be open mid-September, October 1st at the latest.
Oktoberfest.
Indeed we do. Thank you again, Councilman.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, next up this evening, we do have a public hearing for 23250 Woodward Avenue, special land use. 2-minute break.
Sure, yeah.
Do you guys mind if we take a 2-minute break so the room clears out? Okay, we'll take a 2-minute break.
Something to drink.
I'm so glad they got that parking agreement in writing.
They separated us all the way down.
I know.
We got demoted over there.
Seriously.
We finally learned.
Interesting that she said she has five spaces. She's got a gazebo in one.
I know, I just was looking at that.
And then it shares the parking with where our dog training is.
Yeah.
And you can
Out, but we'll go back to our business. Already talking the first page. Okay, so next up, thank you, we have, as I said, the 23250 Woodward Avenue Special Land Use. Justin, I guess you have a site plan for what we're talking about. That would be helpful if you could put it up behind you. I guess maybe we should talk about doing that in general. Is the applicant here for this? Which one is this?
Which is the Mediterranean restaurant?
Wait, sticky fell off.
The one that's in the auto shop? Oh. Another funny shaped space with a parking conversation.
Just a quick overview, Justin. I know there was discussion about this at the last.
Sure.
meeting.
Yes, the applicant was here last month for a proposed small carry-out restaurant, Mediterranean restaurant, at the corner of Woodward and East Maplehurst. Discussion was mostly regarding there is a proposed outdoor seating area for this proposed restaurant as well. The outdoor seating area faces Woodward. The existing building right now is an auto repair shop. The repair shop is kind of obsolete for what it was. There were many curb cuts, kind of parking that was non-compliant, not striped. So the applicant is very interested in improving the building. The internal floor plan, as was included in your packet, is for a Mediterranean restaurant, quick to serve, food at a service counter with some limited seating on site, including the outdoor seating in the warmer months. The proposed location is zone C2. So anytime a proposed business wants outdoor seating outside of CBD, just like the last agenda item, requires a special land use. So the restaurant use is permitted. The special land use, obviously, with the outdoor seating. The applicant's proposed restriping the parking lot in the rear, and the city is actually in the process of paving, or going to be paving as part of the 2016-2017 paving plan, East Maplehurst. And within that paving plan, the city will be replacing the sidewalk there, and the timing worked out well enough that the curb cut on the west corner will be filled as well. So aside from that, we kind of talked about last time, but improvements to the dumpster and bringing that into compliance. Previously, there was a dumpster that was just in the alley. Now this dumpster is going to be enclosed according to ordinance. And then as far as other improvements, there's not really landscaping on site, but the applicant's proposing to add some planter boxes to the site, and then adding bike racks as well. The applicant is short one space and is requesting parking waiver. So, but we feel that with the city feels that with the additional bike racks, location that is right next to a smart bus stop, that there are, if the planning commission is interested, it could warrant a parking waiver of one space. So there are 3 motions in your staff report for the special land use, the site plan, and reduction of parking requirements. Of course, the special land use would go to city council if approved this evening.
Thank you. Are the applicants?
Good evening. My name is Yvette.
Can we-
Good evening. My name is Yvette Litti. I'm the owner of 23250 Woodward, and Fred will help talking about the project.
So, my name is Fred Beatty, and we would like to build a new restaurant at this location. It was a repair shop before, so this will bring to will improve the area in at this site here. As Justin mentioned, will be now this area is being used, you know, as we now. It's cut through. People just drive through it. So, and that's not safe for anyone. So we will be closing off that northwest curve there, and we'll be improving the place, and this we'll have indoors and outdoor seatings. This is a small, it's mostly gonna be carry-out type of restaurant. We're depending on the people walking more than driving to it. So I think this will bring more revenues to the city. Property probably will increase, and we are in the downtown and area, and then that's all I have.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, if you go ahead and have a seat, we're going to go ahead and open up the public hearing.
Thank you.
Unless they don't have any questions this time. All right, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Again, this is for 23250 Woodward Avenue for the special land use, which again is for the outdoor seating. Okay, if you wish to speak, please come to the podium, state your name and address, address your comments to the commission, and please limit your comments to roughly 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Bill Rezkowski. I live at 148 East Maplehurst. I'm the second house in back of that location. I'm a 37-year resident of Ferndale at that location, and I've seen a lot of things through the years. And my initial concern, there was a couple concerns. One is the parking. There's no parking on the south side of Maplehurst, on my side of the street. And I've seen in the past here, just recently, last year, year before, they had a food truck up at the Ferndale Radiator Shop. And on a Saturday, and there would be people parking up and down the street on both sides of the street, and it was very dangerous for the residents. And trash on the grass, you know, next to the curb, that type of thing. So my concern is, you know, that type of situation, that people are unaware that there's no parking on that side of the street. And anytime there's a big event, it seems to inevitably people park there. My other concern is trash. We've got the New York Bagel adjacent half a block away, and we've got rats. I've seen rats coming through my yard. I don't keep my garbage outside, and I'm concerned with a dumpster being adjacent to the alley like that, again, without a compactor or something like that. You know, that's a major concern. And the access to the parking lot through the alley during the winter months, you know, more traffic going up and down that alley. It's just, you know, some concerns of mine. And, you know, maybe not so much the noise. I'm not sure, you know, what type of entertainment or anything they're going to have, but I just wanted to voice those concerns. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Warren Morshea. I live at 140 East Maplehurst. I've been there for 25 years. I am directly behind B&L Auto. Being a resident there, there was never a dumpster in the alley. They had their trash cans up to the back of the building, and those were brought out and kept up at the building. Second is parking on Woodward, there's no parking really on Woodward. It's pretty much right through there. There is no on-street parking. On Maplehurst, during the day, finding a parking spot is next to none, because if you have employees from Automatrix parking where our residents should be able to park, the overflow from Ferndale, not Ferndale Radiator, we don't have a problem, they have their own parking spot, but New York Bagel Factory, when their parking lot is full, they start rolling over onto Maplehurst. I come home from work, and if I'm lucky, I can find a parking spot on the street. If not, I'm all the way at the end of the block and have to walk all the way back to the other corner. The other thing is, too, with them parking coming in and out of that alley, with the business there, my fence, I finally took the one section down because it has been replaced at least 8 times from people coming out, hitting it, because part of the reason is, too, is when they decided to redo all the street on Maplehurst, that alley is pitched wrong, and it is an ice rink in the wintertime. That whole end, full wide by 5 foot deep, is an ice rink. Next thing is, plus with that rear parking, if they're going to put in lighting, it's coming right in through my house. I'd like to know, one, what are the hours of operation? You know, what is it that they're planning on going from, what days of the week, what time of the day? The other thing is, what is going to be the occupancy? Because I did see the plans there. That's only showing 10 parking spots on site, and then they're going to take 5 more off site. Now, during the day, I know the front ones in front of Automatrix are taken by Automatrix. So those parking spots are null and void. Down Maplehurst are filled. If you go through at night, it is completely filled with the residents parking. Then the waste. All right, is it going to be a dumpster? Is it going to be a compactor? We do have rats from New York Bagel Factory. They're seen all the time. I've had them dead. I've had them digging in my yard. I've put out traps. I've put out poison. Now, the special land use. I understand it's zoned for a restaurant. There's nothing we can do about that. How about we have them come in, see how they are as neighbors. The land use can be readdressed in 6 months. They can, see how it works out, see how things go along. But as far as I know, depending on what employees, the major thing is parking. Because like the one gentleman said, when that food truck was there, it was a disaster. That, and I had garbage in my front yard every time. It didn't matter, because now they're talking carry out. They're talking carry out. That's what the food trucks were. So we had people sitting in my yard on the city curb eating their food, and then they get up and just walk away from their garbage. Now, if it's a carry-out, they're going to be doing the same thing. They're going to walk out of there. There's not going to be seating or not enough seating. Where are they going to eat? Are they just going to discard their garbage on the way?
All right, thank you.
So, thank you.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Dana Daly, 204 East Lewiston. I live right behind, my house is right behind Toast, right behind New Way Bar, right behind Ohm Cafe. So we have it all. I have no driveway. I begged a couple years ago, just give me a permit parking. That's all I want, a permit parking spot. And you'll see most of Royal Oak, and now I'm seeing parts of Ferndale, they have permit parking. If you're the first 3 houses in off of Woodward, we as homeowners deserve that. And that's my chief complaint. The second is the rats. There's a lot of rats from Toast or New Way Bar, take your pick, New York Bagel, whatever. That's not safe for residents. But it is a pet peeve when you can't have friends over because there's no parking in front of your own house. And we sure would love, I think it's fair, that residents east or west off of Woodward, the first 3 houses in, should have permit parking. You go to Royal Oak, it's the first 3 or 4 or 5 blocks in with permit parking. And it would be nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Diane Wheeler. I live at 217 East Maplehurst. So I am down the block a little bit, about 8 houses from where this establishment is. But I agree with everybody else. The rats are a major issue. Now we're going to have one more food place, leaving trash out. And we know the dumpsters in our area are dumpsters. They're feeding frenzies for the rats. You can't keep them out of there, even if you try. And the parking is horrendous. It doesn't matter whether it's a few doors down, a half a block down, or all the way down to the corner. If there's something going on 9 Mile, Ferndale parking is bad. And they're up at East Maplehurst parking in our spots. The city has removed many of the no parking signs on the south side of East Maplehurst. Are they going to replace those for us? That's a major concern because people don't see them all the time. I know several of them have been taken down. And even on the north side of Maplehurst, next door to me, there's a 2-hour parking allowed. And they pay absolutely no attention to that. If you're not there or if your car's parked there for 2 or 3 days and somebody complains, then they'll sticker your window. Or like I had to call one night because somebody was directly across my driveway. There's nobody in front of my house or in front of either houses, but it was there. Those are major issues. And the sidewalk seating. If you walk past the New Way, House by You, Tony's, if you're walking with a friend, somebody's got to drop down behind the other one because there isn't room for people to walk these places with their sidewalk seating. You walk single file past those. So I don't see where any of this is going to be a benefit to our community, and I hope you give it real serious consideration and do something for those of us that live right there.
Thank you.
Hello.
Good evening.
Esther Woodward, 135 East Lewiston, and I'm a new resident of Ferndale. I love Ferndale. And I live right off the alley. I'm the first house off Woodward behind the collision shop. And what I didn't know, though, is, Saturday and Sundays, our street is completely parked up for toast. And, so many people don't have driveways. And I just don't think it's fair for residents to have permit parking. We pay nice taxes, and I just feel like this should be the first concern of the city is for the residents. There's so many ways to have revenue, but to take care of the people who live here, I think is so important. And that alley handles so many trucks that come through there for the collision shop and deliveries all day long. There are vehicles in that alley, and they're going to have their driveway in the alley. Is that correct? I just don't see how this is going to be very beneficial to keeping the area safe. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Dave Deneau, 234 East Maplehurst. I essentially echo what the concerns are of my neighbors. But I also want to add it. When we do like to go to places around town, and we do like when there's new exciting things coming, it's not really very beneficial having an abandoned shop at your corner at this point. So whether it's this project or something, that enhances the neighborhood, I could be supportive of that. I don't know that people are convinced yet with the layout of this, and I don't need to repeat everybody's concerns, but like I said, I agree with those. And if it's done well, it could be a nice addition to our block. But yeah, there really is that concern with the parking and trash and rats and things like that. So, and the other thing I wasn't clear on is the building's not very aesthetically pleasing. Was that going to be a tear down, or are there something that they're going to try and work within the existing structure? Because that I wouldn't miss the building going as long as something an improvement was going on in that, and it looks like essentially the same footprint. So just concerned about that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter?
One quick thing, I don't know if I had asked was what the total occupancy inside seating and outside seating, and what are going to be a rough estimate of number of employees.
You did.
Okay, I don't like public speaking, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Justin, do we receive any letters or calls on this one?
I think it's this resident here left a message at the end of the day today, but that was, and that's what I was going to mention, but she already spoke. But that was the only contact that I'd received from any resident.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Vince Sebastiani. I have a house on 159 East Maplehurst, and my concern too is we're talking about a restaurant, and New York Bagel at least has, I'd say, 15 to 20 parking spots, and they're just pretty much carry out. And this place is going to be very limited as far as number of spaces, which obviously is going to be an overflow on the street, and then the rat problem, and nobody said if there was going to be alcohol served at this place and what the hours were. Just very concerned about all the traffic and congestion, especially in the summertime. Wintertime, you got to deal with the snow, so that's going to add more problems in the street. And that's about it. So.
Thank you. Really quickly.
I was here a couple years ago about that permit parking, like Royal Oak, and nobody, they said it would be just like an inconvenience for the police to watch it, to monitor it. I was thinking it would be beneficial for the city if we had permit parking and somebody was breaking those rules and didn't have their permit sticker, you'd be financially ahead because you'd get tickets.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the commission on this item? Okay. Seeing no movement, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this item at 8:30. Bring it back to the commission. Could the applicant please return up to the podium? Is it Fred?
Yes.
Are you the design professional?
No, the civil engineers.
The civil engineers here as well? Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, could you guys speak a little bit about your business, the hours of operation, how many employees you have, what the occupancy of the building is, things of that nature?
Okay, so the hours of operations will be from 11 to 8. There will be no alcohol served at this property here. Occupancy, employees, probably 3. Seats, we have outside. I mean, they're just showing there. I mean, those are about, the outside are 24 chairs. We have like 30, 31 seats inside. Parkings, we have 7 on site in the back with 1 handicap. 4 will be outside. So, and we have a bike racks that I think for 10 bikes. And the building, we're going to be working with the existing structure. We're going to be this area here, this office, there's an office now here in this area. Like there, we're going to be removing it and we're going to make the building look nicer and more moderate. So that's that.
And just to clarify, in terms of the building, all the overhead doors will be filled in. Essentially, the ones facing Woodward will become, excuse me, large windows.
You're right.
And the one facing the road will be completely filled in with masonry.
Right, that's correct.
You said,
Yeah.
would you have provisions for employees to park off-site, or will they be taking up 3 of your spaces?
Oh, I'm not sure. Maybe in the back or outside. I'm not. There are a couple in front there on Woodward. They might be available when we close it off. When we put that this fence here. There might be some parking here probably available. I'm not sure. That's
Okay, and just off that topic, to clarify, so the, just looking at the plans and the aerial, so there's an existing curb cut off of Maplehurst that's being closed as part of this, correct?
Correct. It was proposed to be closed in 2016. It will be closed in 2017 due to a consumer's gas line that's going to be installed. So that paving is postponed until 2017. As part of that paving plan, there will be 2 parking spaces on street added on the south side of East Maplehurst. And I know someone, I think, mentioned the autometric parking that is to the north on Maplehurst. I think if you look at Google Earth, you can actually see the cars illegally parked in a striped area. And so that, I mean, that would be an enforcement issue. But the new parking configuration will add 2 spaces on the south side of East Maplehurst.
During that time, is there anything being done to the north side?
I think the north side is still going to remain no parking because the fire department would like a wide enough turn for in case there was ever a fire on that street.
Okay, but on Woodward itself?
Oh, on Woodward itself?
There's a curb cut that's not being changed.
Right.
And there's no parking striping in front of their driveway? No
Right.
change to that at all?
No change to that.
Is that something that can be looked at?
That's something we could explore with MDOT.
Kind of, it's striped right now for no parking because of access into the site, but there will be no access into the site because of the
outdoor seating.
So the reason for not having parking, I guess, kind of goes away. And that could be opportunity to add 2 more
Right.
spaces on Woodward?
Right, that would be something that could be discussed with MDOT, yeah.
Through the chair. Just for clarification on that, you're saying the Maplehurst curb cut has to go away?
It's sort of just a timing. I mean, I think it should go away for this site, and really for any site. It's sort of dangerous. The police department, traffic control, they expressed that they'd like it closed. And as part of the paving process, the sidewalk was already going to be replaced. So the city, as part of that paving process, will close that.
Through the chair, when I look at to the north side of the building, I see it says there's a no parking sign, and it says, but below it says permit parking only during snow emergency. Can you explain that?
What's existing right now?
Yeah.
On the north side of East Maplehurst?
On the south side of East Maplehurst.
Yes. Right now there is no parking there.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I may, through the chair, even though there's, even on the on-street parking, you need a snow emergency tag if you don't have a driveway in order to park there during a declared snow emergency.
Right.
The DPW declares.
Right.
To clear the street.
So permits not get a ticket if you don't move your car during a snow emergency?
Correct, unless you have a permit on it.
Okay.
So it's a snow emergency permit.
Sounds good.
That makes sense. Can you speak a little bit about this, the parking permit program that the city has started? I don't know. I know it's out of the city manager's office.
Right.
I know that
I can speak a little bit to
That's
it.
coming out right now, and it's something they're doing in the downtown neighborhoods immediately surrounding 9 Mile.
Right. Yes, if anyone's interested on the city's website, in the parking transportation page is where there's an exact map of what is currently being tested for the residential parking zone permit program. I believe it's free. Initially, it was proposed with a fee, but I think it's free
We
through
waived
this
the
test.
fee for the first year or
Yes.
so while we examine and collect data around it.
Yes.
This is the second iteration of a parking permit program that we've tried over the last 3 or 4 years. But again, the intent is to pilot it as we have now, but then make it, there are provisions within the ordinance that would allow other neighborhoods to adopt the permit program.
Correct. And I think, as spoken about earlier, I think some streets like East Maplehurst and some Marshfield may be neighborhoods that could be explored next, and I could relay that information. And if any residents are interested more, I would definitely suggest contacting the assistant city manager, or you can contact me and I can put you in touch with them. Just if you are interested in having that program on your street, that could be the next phase.
Yeah, I would just to add to that, I think that where we've already put it in, and it's only for a very short time been enforced, we've already seen a significant improvement in the situation. We haven't even hit peak festival season yet.
Right.
So I'm personally a big fan of these kinds of programs. I know it's inconvenient. It feels like, like somebody indicated, we pay taxes. Why would we need a permit program? The after effect of the growth of the city is that in order to protect resident rights, which I'm a huge advocate of, sometimes it may require something like this. And to me, that's, when in the previous agenda item indicated a comprehensive parking program, resident protection needs to be a piece of that, in my opinion. And this is one of the tools that we've developed to do that. So.
So I do want the speakers who are here today to understand that the city has started a permit parking program. So right now it's focused on downtown, but if you're interested in your neighborhood, because of some of the situations you have with Toast and other things, that contact the city manager's office. So I would encourage you to do that, regardless of what happens with this project. Okay, in terms of waste removal, so you are going to be installing a enclosed dumpster, correct, on the property?
That's correct.
Will you have, in the front of the facility where you're going to have outdoor dining, will there be a type of receptacle outside? Anything for people who are dining out front? So when they come into your establishment, they grab
Yeah.
a shawarma, and they go outside, and they sit in one of your patio tables. Is there a waste receptacle outside, or do they have to go back into the building to throw away their napkins and whatnot?
Yeah, that. Yeah, we will have something definitely there outside, so for people to put the trash in.
That will, again, with the concerns about the rat problem, I just want to make sure there's something that's secure, especially overnight, that, I don't know if it's
Well,
broad.
we're not going to leave anything overnight. Overnight it will be empty.
If I may through the chair, I'm sorry. I think your intent to keep it empty overnight is certainly admirable, but you can't control who walks by in the middle of the night and chucks stuff in your trash cans and things like that, and that attributes to the problem as well. Just on a tangential note, I'd like to ask city staff to take a look at that area, because now that we have potentially 3 food establishments in that short place of time in other parts of the city, we have more comprehensive trash management that collectively they can use and helps abate some of the rat problem. So as we move forward and look at this spot, if we can tag that as something to look at of other potential alternatives. I understand the space is tight, but there are more, this potentially could create more food opportunities in that area, and it's not just a business by business issue, it's a comprehensive, what's on that block, how do we look at that issue? Thanks.
Thank you.
The area would be, if we were to put something there, it's going to be towards the building, not accessible by, and there is a fence which will be locked at night. So
I fully agree and understand that, again, through the chair. I think a resident made a very poignant comment that said, a dumpster is only so good at abating rats. There are better solutions out there. That makes sense when you have a propensity of businesses in the area that have a particular amount of food waste. And so my direction to city staff is to investigate what other options there might be for that area that could could serve collectively all those businesses in that area that produce food waste.
But again, in addressing the rats and just the garbage and stuff that I expect, because it's a carry-out nature, there is a lot of paper products, there would be some type of receptacle that would be accessible to the people, outside in your area, that either you would just bring it in at night or whatever it is that you do to make sure that there's not just waste, that there's a place to put it. In terms of going back to the parking, and again, New York Bagels come up many times. In terms of the parking deficiency, if basic calculations are deficient, is it one space?
One space.
Justin? And knowing that New York Bagel is just down the street, which is obviously primarily a morning business, is there any discussion with them about some type of shared reciprocal parking? Because their parking hits primarily before you're going to be opening. And so if there's a way that you could use their parking when they're closed and vice versa. Has that been discussed?
Yes, she actually went there and talked to the owner, and we gave him the agreement very short, just to agree that our customers would park in his, it's very, and he agreed to that, and he said his business closes at 6, so we can use it, from 6 to 8 if needed, and he was gonna call us back and let us know if he needed to make any changes to it. And
So you don't have a signed version, but there's
No, I don't.
open dialogue, and
Right.
all indicators thus far indicate that there's a willingness to work together
Right.
to share parking for both. Because again,
Right.
you're not open in the morning when he needs their peak
Yeah.
parking. Okay. Any outdoor speakers or music intended?
I don't know. I mean, we're not, I don't think so.
This is a carry-out restaurant. isn't it?
Right. I mean, maybe during
Dream Cruise?
Woodward Cruise, right. We'll put some speakers there, but other than that, I don't think so.
Okay.
And the lights, I heard the lights were designed, there is no direct acts, like, no one is directly from that side to our building. There's no, I mean, the house is like down there, so all the lights will be facing down, not sideways or anyway.
So all the
They're
light
gonna-
fixtures will be downward directed
Right.
and fully
So there will
shielded.
be no noise going anywhere, and we'll make sure that's not going to be the case.
Sorry, just one more time through the chair. And I understand and recognize it's not our place to look at your business model, but have you thought about, from a takeout perspective, doing deliveries to try to abate some of the parking needs?
Deliveries?
Yeah, to do deliveries instead of takeout, or in conjunction with, to reduce the amount of parking stress.
We might, I mean, delivery might be an option if, we'll see how it goes. I mean, if we have a lot of business that way, maybe we'll have that. We'll use it.
Chair, while we're talking about the outside seating, I've just got a question about the patio area. If I remember correctly from our last conversation, the patio won't be encroaching on the sidewalk the way a lot of the patios in downtown Ferndale do. Instead, because you've got so much space in front of your building, the sidewalk will still be fully accessible, right? Your patio is kind of on your property rather than on the sidewalk, right? Do I remember that correctly? So the concern about some of the other patios that make the sidewalk pretty narrow, you guys are sort of lucky because you've got this
Right.
big space already.
We
So your
went with
patio
the-
will be inside.
With the,
Okay.
with just the map,
Right.
that's property lines.
That's what I thought I remembered. Okay, thank you.
I wasn't at the discussion at the last planning commission meeting, but one of the things I had was about the separation of the parking in the rear from the sidewalk. So I see currently there is a chain link fence with barbed wire.
Yep.
And I see in the plans that you're showing that you're going to remove the barbed wire, but the
That's
existing chain link fence is to remain.
Right.
Technically, our ordinance requires a masonry wall or a shrub row. I understand this is an existing non-conforming site that you guys are bringing into better compliance, but looking at your plan, it looks like you have a nicer fence on the front around your outdoor seating area. was wondering if you could continue the same type of decorative fence in the rear as well, so we're not looking at a dated chain link fence that's been there for who knows how long.
Well, it's in good shape. I mean, if that's a must, I mean, I think it's in good shape and it doesn't need to be replaced. We can probably paint it and have, probably we'll put some, whatever, you know, like
Looking at the area,
plantings.
looking at the street, it looks like the poles are pretty rusted out. Again, and chain link isn't really a preferred front yard kind of treatment along a driveway and a sidewalk. So again, I would lean towards looking at something more in lines with what's being proposed out front, which you're already going to be purchasing some of that 4-foot black steel fence to keep a consistent look and a better buffer and separation from the pedestrians and the, again, it's interesting if you're going to invest in the site and leave kind of the shoddy chain-looking fence that's been there forever. I think you should invest. Again, you're on a corner, it's highly visible. It's where people are going to be coming and going. That's just one of my thoughts. And again, I wasn't here at the last meeting to share that thought, but one thing that jumped out at me just from an aesthetic standpoint for this property.
I think we can improve without replacing it, we can do some things to make it look better than what it is now. It's going to cost a lot of money that way to replace it. And it's not in bad condition, that's the point. I mean, whatever it needs, if we need to change any parts or anything, we will. But to fence that whole area is...
I agree this is a good opportunity, especially under this, since it's in front of us, to request for that.
Right. It's that technically the ordinance requires a masonry wall, and so I think a nice compromise is getting rid of a dated, rusted chain link fence to another fence material that's already being proposed on the site. Again, you have that surrounded your exterior patio area. Along, I'm not sure the exact length of here, but it doesn't seem to be that extensive of a length.
It's like 180 by probably 60, something like that.
No, it can't be. Looking at your
Well,
dimension plans right here, the building is 101 feet length, and this is about not even a little over half, so talking maybe 70 feet.
Yeah, 70 by some, probably it's 125, 60, something like that.
Again, I'm just one commissioner, but again, as part of bringing up a site to standards, not even current standards, because technically the ordinance says a masonry wall. So
But this is in the back though, right?
Anytime a parking lot is abutting a sidewalk,
Can we just remove it then?
no, then you need some
It has
separation so
to-
that cars aren't driving off into the sidewalk. You need a separation. The ordinance requires a hedgerow or a masonry wall. But again, I would be willing to entertain a fence consistent with what's in the front, but I'm one of 9.
And a fence consistent to the front would be cheaper than building a masonry wall as well, so, because you wouldn't need a foundation or anything like that. The one thing I'm a little bit concerned with was the main entrance and exit being along the alleyway with the ice problem.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about
And I can imagine cars hitting the house behind it, and I'm not 100% sold on entrance being to the back. Entrance being in the back through the alley. It just seems like you're cutting it really close to the existing properties for a main entrance.
I have had 2 cars go through my front yard.
Thank you, sir. Do we know in terms of other businesses, I'm trying to picture other businesses in this area.
On where the parking is or the entrances?
I'm thinking Toast is the same way, which would be Ohm, Toast, that block has
Right.
the same type of rear access.
Right.
because-
Some of the other businesses to the north as well. I'm
Because most of
blanking.
the properties on Woodward don't have a separate.
Right, right.
Is there snow removal and ice removal by the city through those alleys?
Yeah, the public alleys, so the DPW handles all streets and rights of way.
I'm sure alleys are lowest in the totem pole.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is one that they're responsible for.
Okay.
Well, I was going to ask, similar question. So through the chair, if we're having a conversation about upgrading a building and making an investment there, could there not also be a conversation about whatever the city did wrong with the drainage issue? Certainly we can't guarantee, we're not DPW, we can't guarantee that it would be addressed, but is there a way to?
I mean, there will be some curb replacement and drainage. I mean, the drainage is evaluated as part of East Maplehurst. I'm not sure, I don't believe the alley is being repaved as part of the paving plan, yeah.
If I may, through the chair, it is within our scope, though, to go back and ask the city to report back to us on the status of when they expect improvements within that alley and the
Absolutely.
drainage to be addressed. I think the point's very well taken, and just if the Planning Commission asks for an update in the report, that may help with the prioritization of that work.
Through the chair, if I could. Have you guys explored any different layouts for the parking? I'm looking at the current image on Google Maps. Looks like they've got a little bit different than you propose. I think you got a decent amount of space there, and maybe if you rearranged it, and I'm not sure if you've went through a couple parking plans that could kind of optimize that, maybe a different entrance, maybe working with the city on that. Has that been done at all?
Through the chair, yeah. There was another parking plan that was suggested by the city engineer as an alternative option that I think would result in one less parking space. If you, I think the option had, instead of the diagonal, sort of tilting it north to south, and resulted in a loss of a parking space. But it was a suggestion that we discussed. But this was the layout that was proposed during this discussion item, and so we felt that it would be important to move forward with this one. But it's something we can review and take another look at.
And follow up through the chair. Have you guys, or has there any been look at maybe making a curb cut not into the alley and getting away from the residents and having the curb cut be on Maplehurst there? Is there any ability to do that with the repaving? I think if the traffic, were on Maplehurst instead of the alley, you're getting, at least creating a little bit of distance and create more options, I think, for that placement of the dumpster.
Yeah, I think, the dumpster would be my only concern with that, but I mean, it's something we can discuss.
My only thought about that is currently, if you look at how this is going to be working, so you pull in here, you're going to be doing some maneuvering in this parking lot and getting out to an alley. If you had an access off of Maplehurst, there wouldn't be really any internal room for maneuvering. You'd be almost backing out onto Maplehurst. I don't see how you could do that unless you had one on Maplehurst, an in only off Maplehurst and an out only through the alley. But then I think you'd be really limited to how many parking spaces. I mean, you'd be going down on parking spaces. I think more than one at that point.
Through the chair, I'd also be worried about the blind spot that the zero lot line on the existing building creates along East Maplehurst. That corner already, because of the diagonal from Woodward, it's almost more than a 90-degree turn. So the visibility coming out from behind the building, it would be very limited. It's already sort of limited at the alley. Pulling it closer, I'd just be worried about cars swinging off of Woodward.
And then you'd lose future on-street parking.
Yeah, the on-street parking. Think about that.
Yeah, I think this is a tough one that I think we see. There's obviously an obsolete building that's sitting there, and we want to see a viable business in there. I think what you're proposing is a good thing. Wish you had a little more land. But I think most people in Ferndale can relate to that a little bit. The parking, just to be clear, the parking modification is for one space, correct?
Correct.
To me, when I think of that in one space, is it worth having another passing on opportunity to redevelop it and have it sit empty? especially when there's discussions amongst neighboring properties about maybe some sharing of parking, potentially maybe adding some spaces on Woodward, knowing that that driveway is no longer needed, that there'll be additional spaces on Maplehurst within the next year or so in the immediate vicinity of this area. Again, I think it's exactly kind of the type of business and use we want to promote in the city with the outdoor patios. Just from the staff, I don't know if either staff or applicant, is there any environmental concerns that had to have been done from changing this from an automotive use to a food prep use?
Just the fact that they would have to go through the Oakland County Health Department process, just like any other restaurant. But I don't think that there was specific environmental testing required on the site. But
it's not residential,
right?
Through the chair, so we talked a bit about the possibility of a consolidated trash solution for those couple of blocks in the restaurants. What we really haven't talked about, other than making sure that there are some trash receptacles outside, is that sort of the blowing trash or people walking down the street with the trash. And this is actually, if I'm allowed, a question for Councilman Martin. See, you can separate us and still ask some questions.
You can't keep us apart.
Only because I know that you dine at Embrew more often than I do. So when I picture the business that the applicant has described, I think of Embrew, which is a sort of a walk up to the counter and order and eat. It's not like a wait staff bringing you something, but it is a sit down dining experience as opposed to a food truck where you walk up, you get your thing, and you walk away. And granted, it's right in the middle of the downtown. It's a couple blocks away from here, but does that food experience feel like somewhere that people are leaving trash or that people are walking around with food? This feels like more of a sit-down, like a fast casual dining experience, not a
There's two components to that.
food
One,
truck.
there's a significant amount of staff time spent policing the property. Secondly, it's not on Woodward. So the foot traffic is significantly less, but still a concern, and they're very conscientious about it. But no, it doesn't feel that it's a drop from McDonald's bag and run kind of place.
So the vigilance of the staff makes a big difference.
The vigilance of the staff, he's got some shrubbery up front, which I think also helps with that.
Okay.
And also the fact that it's a couple doors and a vester that it helps.
Okay. That's helpful. It's certainly not equivalent to a food truck, but it's also not somewhere that you've got a waitress bringing your things and then taking them away. So, trying to understand the difference.
Through the chair, so the front patio area and the area to the north of it is still all just pavement. Was there any consideration about more landscaping or other additional planters along Woodward, something to buffer your dining experience from the traffic?
We have one planter on Maplehurst there. Maybe the small. Do you mean like the in ground like repair?
Right now, it's a giant island of movement,
right.
And with some of the concerns that are being raised, it's still, potentially a paved area. So looking at opportunities for maybe adding greenery to it, and just what you might have considered.
Like flowers and things, like in the summer.
Planters or other.
Like those baskets and things. Maybe we can hang on the
I know
fence.
you've got, it's the 4-foot high fence, there's definitely traffic going by in Woodward, and you've got tables, patio dining, I understand it's an experience, but having that kind of separation, again, addressing trash and other items that separated.
Did you want to park on my street? Yeah, I was just wondering if they actually had some writing.
Just providing more separation with some greenery, I think, would make it probably a better visually, and then also provide some protection from anyone who might be sitting there, and some separation from the sidewalk is what they're proposing.
I'm thinking it might even draw more attention since your building is tucked back as people are going north. just to see something there, because your property line extends out a little bit, so I think the more excitement you create at the sidewalk, the more it'll draw attention for people actually on your side of the street, so.
Yeah, we definitely will. I mean, we'll put something there, you know, as just something, you know, to, of course, protect from noise, but, you know.
The Chair, I have another question. There's, in a street view, there's 2 utility poles on your property in the back, and I don't see them on your site plan, and I'm wondering if they impact either the corner parking or your dumpster enclosure?
One of the poles is right here. Oops. Right there. And the other pole is somewhere, it's behind the fence. It's not like impeding any, you know, we can open the gate all the way and, you know, not, the pole is still away from there, so it's not affecting it.
I would just ask, maybe as a condition in a motion, to make sure that's worked out with staff, that it's clear of the dumpster enclosure and that that's been looked at.
Other questions, thoughts?
Can someone check my memory on this? I remember when you came in front of our, I believe when you came in front of our meeting, and then from the commission last month, you did have parking out front, but we advised that it would be a good idea to get the parking off, flowing in and out of Woodward, and so that is part of the reason why the parking is a little bit short in the back.
Correct. And I think the day of that meeting is when we just internally I was informed of the change to the paving plan and the possibility that that curb cut could be closed. So it was good timing to have that discussion.
Through the chair, if I could. I guess I wasn't a part of I wasn't at the last planning commission meeting, and when I look at the plan, the whole time I've been looking at it, the idea of front parking, the idea of a Chili's to go, so to speak, out front, kind of lends itself. And that's the whole time when I said maybe a rearrangement of parking would lend itself if this is a carry-out kind of idea, a New York bagel in and out. I think the front of this lends itself to have maybe 2 spots that allow you to not back onto Woodward, but to back into its own property and leave the property safely. I think that, I don't know, it sounds like there was a lot of dissent to that idea, but I think maybe revisiting it with a couple different options would be a good idea, something that, I don't know what was explored exactly, but I don't see that as a problem. There's parking. If it was an idea that it might look bad, there's parking along Woodward everywhere. So I wouldn't think that would be a problem. The danger, I think, could be alleviated by the way it's designed. So I don't know if that's something we could get back to.
And I wasn't at the meeting either. No, I left early. I wasn't here for this discussion item. So you're suggesting there would be, so instead you'd have to have 2 curb cuts, one off of Woodward and one off of Maplehurst.
No, and I'm looking at an overhead view of B&L Automotive, and there's the curb cut that's there now on Woodward is large, and if you made the most southerly area sort of a backing area, and then your 2 spots were further north, you could back out and stay on the property and off the curb and be able to maneuver so you're facing and directing yourself back out onto Woodward forward.
Yeah, I think that whole idea gives me concern, just with pedestrians on Woodward, and I think the whole idea of what we're trying to achieve along the Woodward corridor is to try to encourage those cafes and yeah, I would have a lot of concern with that. I wasn't privy to the conversation either, though. Go ahead.
I think we were also trying to get away from parking in front of commercial properties. Throughout our commercial and mixed district, they have any parking in front of the building, so that helps us get around that one.
And unfortunately, I mean, the first concept that was shared with the police and traffic circulation, they were pretty concerned with that initial layout, just of people potentially getting, rear-ended or any type of accident there on the corner. They'd like to close as many of those curb cuts on Woodward as possible, but.
Okay.
Just to, I guess, continue with my point, I looked at the proposal for last week or last meeting, and the parking proposed would be off of Maplehurst there. And I guess my, kind of what I'm thinking, I don't know, and like I said, I'm not an architect, I'm not a designer, but if you moved your patio to the corner and then move the 2 parking spots closer there, you're getting the same type of effect that you do with on-street parking that Woodward already offers up and down there, like in front of New York Bagel. So to promote it in some areas and then not here, I think it's kind of conflicting. I get that it's in front of a business, but with on-street parking in front of Woodward, I don't know how you get away from that. So I guess that'd be my take on it.
I understand what you're saying, and I think it would be a good idea. I think it needs a little more land. I don't think they could maneuver that safely with the sidewalk in the front of the building without corner clear or sight distance concerns with the sidewalk and the neighboring buildings.
Particularly because of that neighboring building, which is then a retail, sort of a revolving retail use, the backing over the sidewalk. I mean, other than any sort of aesthetic or philosophical issues about parking in front of buildings, backing over the sidewalk makes me, I would not support that.
I would say
fewer curb cuts, not more.
Oh, sorry, Kate.
That's okay.
I would just say that if we are going to move for less parking in front of businesses, which, I mean, I would be supportive of, then we really do need to figure out closing those with MDOT and really making it clear that this is not a place to turn in, because it's completely changing the nature of that corner if we are putting seating on the corner, and I think that has to be part of this redevelopment. And so I know that requires coordination with another agency, but I feel like if we're going to do it right, that needs to be part of it.
And I'm happy to explore it, but just to be clear, I mean, that would requiring the applicant to fund that.
Oh, I don't know that I was recommending that specifically, but I'm just wondering what their take on the situation would be.
Yeah.
And what they could possibly do in that area.
Okay.
Through the chair, that leads to a question. So we're doing the special land use first, and then the fence that actually makes it not drivable is part of the site plan review. But could we put the fence in the special land use so that we are addressing that nobody can cut through the site if they don't put the fence up?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If any conditions that would help, that would apply to the outdoor seating, can be a condition of the special land use.
Okay.
So if there's a buffer, whether it be vegetation or fencing, hours of operation.
Okay.
This could be either.
Okay. And on that, I do support that it needs more green space up there. Not that we're trying to, make everybody have a green front door. It'd be great, but since they're not at the property line, maybe a little bit more green with their fence would be preferable to just a fence, because they really have a lot of hardscape there. Unless you're planning on pulling out any of that sea of concrete, then it might be a nice, softer, more attractive way to buffer and keep people from driving in where they always used to. That's my thought. Could I make a motion?
Sure.
All right. In the matter of 250 Woodward Avenue, the Planning Commission recommends City Council approve a special land use request for outdoor seating. I'm doing the special land use first, right? Okay. Based on plans and applications dated received by the Planning Department on May 2nd, 2016, with the findings that are listed and conditions that amplified noise is prohibited after 10 o'clock in the C2 district, and that the fence is installed along Woodward to separate or cut off the access through the existing MDOT curb cut.
Support. All right, we have a motion and a support. Any questions, discussions, clarifications on the motion?
Actually, I would like to amend that. And I would like to ask for the fence along East Maplehurst to be not chain link. I would recommend that it be replaced with ornamental fence.
Tied to the outdoor seating?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay, support. I would have put it in site plan.
I'm sorry, that could be a site plan. All right, I'm going to leave that off for site plan. So
Okay.
I'm standing with my original motion. Thank you.
Right. Questions, clarifications? Let's go with a roll call vote, please.
Brazen,
Yes.
Barr,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Showalter,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Azar,
Yes.
and Baker,
Yes.
and Chair Vodiger.
Yes. Okay, so you have a recommendation from Planning Commission to the City Council for the outdoor seating element of this plan. We still have 2 more requests this evening for site plan and for the reduction of parking. So with that, we'll be into the site plan. Are there questions regarding the site plan?
I'll put a motion in the matter at 23250 Woodward Avenue. Planning Commission approved the site plan based on plan dated received by the Planning Department on May 2nd, 2016, and the following findings as listed and conditions, including prior to site plan approval, the applicant submit plans to the DDA Appearance Review Committee.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have support?
Yes, I support.
Okay.
Through the chair, item number 2 for screening and landscaping, it's listed as multiple planters, but I only see 1 planter, and I strongly recommend additional vegetation or greenery or planters be added on the Woodward, on the west side of the property.
There's a suggestion, does the motion maker accept a friendly amendment to the motion for additional vegetation along the Woodward frontage of the property?
Do we want to do the back?
Does the seconder support that motion, that amended motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, it's getting late. Did we add the fence on the, okay, and if I may add one more, the utility pole coordination with the dumpster and parking by staff during.
Okay, so there's
I agree, that's fine.
Okay, there's a third friendly amendment to have staff coordinate the utility pole in relation to the dumpster and parking. And then you also referenced the ornamental fence along Maplehurst.
Yes.
Motion maker. Okay, so just to clarify, there's 4 conditions now. The first one, the DDA appearance review. The second being additional vegetation added along the Woodward frontage. The third being coordination of the utility poles in the rear of the property. And the fourth being ornamental fence, replace the existing chain link fence along the Maplehurst frontage. Any other questions, clarifications? I have a question.
Regarding the ornamental fence, so just to be clear, if they remove the current fence, don't they fall out of existing non-conforming, which would create the requirement that they go with a mason wall? I don't think that you can move out of existing non-conforming to non-conforming.
I think you can bring a site more into compliance whenever you're looking at a non-conforming site. If you're improving compliance, I think that's the intent. You don't have to always require 100% compliance if you're moving in the direction of compliance. And so to go from a chain link to a decorative, I think, is more in keeping with the intent of the regulations.
I would agree. I mean, there's a lot of non-conforming sites that we see on this board and then administratively, and that's how we operate, is within the intent. My only clarification is, so the existing chain link fence wraps around the entire rear of the site, so would we say decorative fence on every side?
My intention was along Maplehurst. I
Okay.
think the chain link fence along the alley really isn't serving any purpose.
Okay.
I think it will look awkward, though. This is going to be one kind of fence, and the other one would stay. I mean, it doesn't even look
So you can get rid of the chain link in the rear. You'd only have the ornamental along Maplehurst.
Yeah, but it's not going to match with the one along the alley. You know.
You could get rid of that completely. You wouldn't have the chain link in the back. There wouldn't be
So-
two mismatched. It would be all the same.
So can you explain that, please? Like how is that going to turn out?
The fence that you have right here,
Yeah.
you would put here, this could come down.
Well, you're going to make it a free parking lot for, like it is now in the front. Now the front, everyone is parking there. We ask them not to park. How can you enforce it? Not as of now. Other businesses are using it for, how can I enforce other people not to park in my lot?
It's a private parking lot. I mean, you don't have to chain link a fence in to enforce
park.
parking.
We go to this guy, we told him several times, he doesn't care, he parks his car there.
You're welcome to include the ornamental fence around the rear if you prefer. Is this part of the motion?
Clarification on that. So are we saying that he doesn't have to have any fence between the back of that parking lot and the residences? Because I think that's specifically how the ordinance falls. That the concern is between the parking lot and residences, whereas Maplehurst is really not where the requirement lies.
No, there is a requirement along Maplehurst. Remember, there's a parking lot abutting a sidewalk.
Okay.
Through the chart, there probably is enough space then at that point to continue the solid wall, like the construction for the dumpster enclosure, so you could have a fence or a barricade that conforms with the ordinance at that point.
You're saying over closer to the building?
Mm-hmm. You could just continue that. Probably have the width to do it at that point.
You could wrap the ornamental here and then have a solid wall here.
I'd be afraid if we kept this open, there'd be cars that would park here and block off the alley and cause more damage over here.
Okay, so the discussion then, what was just suggested was that the dumpster, there's going to be a dumpster right abutting the building, essentially in the corner, that there will be a wall as part of the dumpster enclosure that could connect to the building, essentially be the policing of parking along that portion of the rear of the property, and that the ornamental fence that's on Maplehurst could wrap that 90-degree and handle the northernmost portion along the alley. Are people following that?
Just around the parking space.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's obviously an opening in
Right.
the back that would be open.
Right.
So the half on the north side would match the ornamental, and the half on the south side would match the dumpster enclosure.
So if you really did want to put a gate there, you could. You'd still have two walls you could attach to and then lock it off if you really wanted to. Otherwise, as with the previous opportunity that we reviewed, you can put up signage to prevent people from parking in your lot.
I have a sign right now. I mean, this is the best proof here, Every time I pass by it, I know who's parking there. I go to him, why are you parking? Go do whatever, He moves his car and you turn this way, he goes parks in there. So what can I do? Where's I called the cops and I was gonna do something else, but how can I enforce it?
Right. Well, what you're talking about now is a private enforcement of private parking. I mean, New York Bagel doesn't have a fence around their parking lot when they're not open. I mean, you're
Right.
already talking about shared parking agreements, maybe with your neighboring properties, and so.
But if we're looking for a waiver, I mean, I don't need a lot of
But your lot is currently set fenced in with a chain link fence. This commission, one of the conditions that's on the table right now for discussion is the changing of that to a ornamental along the Maplehurst. If you're concerned about having something along the rear, then you're welcome to wrap that ornamental. And then one of the suggestions was closer to the building, maintaining, because you're going to have a dumpster wall along closest to the building that essentially almost covers that portion of the rear anyway. So you can extend that an additional 5 feet or whatever it is in that corner. Does everyone understand the discussion on the table? And are they on board, or if there's other suggestions?
I support it, yeah.
Yes.
I just, if I could, I think it's adding an additional burden. That fence is there. There's a lot of similar fences if you go up and down that corridor there. That type of fence, I mean, maybe minus the barbed wire, exists. It's adding a burden on the prospective people here. But so I guess I don't think that should be a condition that they have to have.
Through the chair, I didn't feel strongly about it at our last conversation. The conversation certainly about removing the barbed wire and improving it, but if the commission feels strongly otherwise.
Well, it's the motion currently. Personally, I feel pretty strongly we're upgrading the site. We're not requesting a whole lot in terms of landscaping, a lot of other things, and they're already proposing this fence elsewhere on the property, so it's not like it's something that they. I think it's pretty minimal cost for a fence compared to a masonry wall or something else that could be required. But any other discussion? If the motion makers want to remove the condition, otherwise, any other discussion on the item? Let's take a roll call.
Okay. Okay, we are up to Farr.
Yes, just with the explanation that I don't feel that the condition for the additional fencing is necessary.
Kelly?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Showalter?
Yes.
Williamson?
Yes.
Azar?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Brazen?
Yes.
And Chair Rodiger.
Yes, and I trust, Justin, you were comfortable with understanding of the discussion of that you'll
Yes.
work with the applicant. They understand.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then lastly, we do have the reduction of parking requirements, approval, and again, this is for a modification of one parking space.
Correct.
Just to clarify, and if we could make sure we put that in the motion in the future.
Okay.
So it's clear how many spaces we are modifying.
Through the chair, I just have one question. So, Justin, we're saying that by 2018, there would be an additional street space on Maplehurst and potentially an additional street space on Woodward, where there's currently a curb cut.
The correct on East Maplehurst. I mean, pending discussions with MDOT, the space on Woodward would be added as well. My only clarification with that, I think earlier, and I got a little confused, is the curb cut required on Woodward to be closed, and if it's the applicant's responsibility or not. Those are just my questions.
So, could this approval be conditional upon those additional spaces being added, or does it matter?
I would delay their.
Well, I don't think it will be the
Opening.
timing.
I mean, can this be applicable for a certain time frame until those spots are available? Or is it moot?
I mean, if city plans change, and then what would happen?
I don't know, that's just a question.
It could, yes. The answer is yes, it could. In terms of the MDOT, I mean, I'm sure this is not on their priority to, we were struggling with the curb cuts we're having over on the 8 Mile discussion.
Right.
Has there been any progress or?
I don't imagine it's high on their list. I did not reach out to them on this specific issue, but.
Yeah, through the chair, I would hate to put a requirement on the applicant if we don't know whether or not MDOT would even approve it or pay attention to it, or. I think we've addressed as much as we can on the site in terms of creating a visible barrier.
Is there a way, I noticed in the aerial that there's what looks like to be some old street trees that were removed to put those back in? and they're in the right of way. Look, there's tree grates there. And it looks to be just based on the area, I don't know, I didn't do the site visit this today, but even if adding those trees, I think would then be a visual barrier, obviously not right in that driveway, but would kind of deter vehicles, if you look into that.
Yes, absolutely.
Either with our street tree planting program, it's in the right of way, there's already the tree grates there, why aren't there trees in them?
Through the chair, maybe my question's a different way. So they're shy one spot, but there is shared parking plan.
There were discussions with New York Bagel about a shared parking agreement. I informed the applicant that I would need to see a letter or of some sort in order, to actually include that as a condition. And so I have not received that as of yet so far.
But if they had that, would they need the approval for the reduction of parking, or would they need it then?
I think this commission would still have to approve. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the other thing that's in their favor slightly is New York Bagel. The Woodward spaces there at night are sort of opposite of these hours, but.
Through the chair, if I may, he has a really healthy delivery business that sometimes occupies those spots that he delivers to the airport and numerous other places that may not just be direct customer takeout.
So as proposed right now, there's a condition that there be a shared parking agreement be filed with the city. So I guess the question is, what if one isn't filed with the city in terms of New York Bagel? Is this still acceptable to the commission? Again, recognizing it's a one-space deficiency. So that is, I guess, the question I pose. We don't have a motion on the table, do we?
No.
No, I didn't think so. Okay. So something to think about to the motion maker, whether or not that shared parking agreement is required or encouraged, I guess.
My preference would be to require, at least for employee parking. You wouldn't want your employees taking your customer spots anyway, so we can get the employee cars off the street. That's an improvement.
That becomes problematic because I think, as the applicant stated, it would only be for between the hours of 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., which is after New York Bagel's hours. So for employees, it wouldn't really work.
Well, the New York Bagel is certainly slower in the afternoon. Perhaps there's a conversation about what 4 o'clock looks like in their world. I'm not New York Bagel, so I don't know, but
without that, this project would die.
It would really depend on what that agreement stated specifically, I suppose, about whether they would be willing to enable employees to park there during the operating hours of this proposed business.
If I may, through the chair, I think that's what a required agreement does, and then we rely on the staff of, the city staff to determine whether that's an acceptable countermeasure or not. I don't think that needs to come back here necessarily, but I would trust Justin to say, yeah, that makes sense, or no, it doesn't.
Okay. All right. Any other discussions, questions, or motion? This is a reduction of 1 parking space.
I move in the matter of 23250 Woodward Avenue, the Planning Commission approve the reduction of parking requirements based on the plans dated and received on May 9th, 2016, with the findings that are listed and the condition that proposed shared parking agreement be filed with the city. Did I get that condition right? It was as written?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions, clarifications?
Just to state, then I'll continue to not support these motions just out of principle that I don't think the resident protections are adequately addressed at this time.
Okay. Any questions, clarifications? We have a roll call vote, please.
Martin.
No.
Showalter.
Yes.
Williamson.
Yes.
Azar.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Brazen.
No.
Farr.
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Chair Rodiger.
Yes. Okay. your motion passes again, you do have to go to city council for the special land use, and we can put Justin on that. In the meantime, if you guys can work out some of these other issues, hopefully before it gets to council, that would probably be in your best interest.
Definitely.
All right, thank you. All right, next up, we have a public hearing for 1720 Dover Street. This is a rezoning. The applicant is here, and this is something we've had a discussion on, I think, a couple months ago now. Justin, if you do a brief
Sure.
overview, please?
Yes, the applicant, Josh Henry, is here. He's requested the rezoning of the parcel at 1720 Dover Street from R1 single family to R2 single family to permit future construction of a two-family dwelling. The vacant lot, the lot is currently vacant at the corner of Dover Street and the alley just south of West 9 Mile. The applicant was here in March to discuss the potential rezoning, and the direction from this commission was to pursue R2 over R3. Around the same time, the former American Legion Hall property was recently rezoned to R3, so there was some discussion on if R3 made sense for this property. Since that time, the applicant solidified plans and filled out a full, proper rezoning application to rezone to R2. The master plan for the site calls for low-density residential. It's adjacent to commercial and office. The rezoning review considerations are listed in the staff report. Staff recommends approval of the requested rezoning with a motion in your packet. Obviously, Planning Commission should determine the future land use of the site, make sure it aligns based on that ordinance, the rezoning ordinance. And should the Planning Commission recommend approval of the rezoning to City Council would review that request and have the final decision on that request. And as the property is proposed as a two-family dwelling, if the applicant did actually move forward with the site plan, two-family dwellings, new construction are administrative approvals internally here, and staff would be sure that some of the discussions we had previously about architectural harmony with the neighborhood, building materials, and those type of items would be handled as part of a full site plan.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and the applicant, if you could get up, and I know you gave us a brief presentation when you were here before.
Yeah.
But is there anything highlighted, new, different, or main points of the project that you want to make?
Not necessarily. I guess the only update I had from our discussion last time was I just updated some of the questions you guys had as far as like materials, things like that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give you more of an in-depth, I guess, idea of what I'm thinking. Not necessarily this isn't for sure stuff, but ideas that I have and what I'd like to use. So that's basically the update. I had talked to the neighbors, at least the majority. I think it was like 6 or 7 of them. I didn't know how far to go, so if there's anybody else here that I apologize if I didn't talk to you, but there was very good response, I think, overall. And there was 2 concerns, I think, initially was one, parking, which, I let them know that I do have in plans for off-site, or off-street, parking. So that is accommodated for in the plans, and the property does support that. And then the other one was, in the letter, it didn't really mention what exactly I was doing, right, description-wise. But I think once they realized the house was for me, because I'm building the house for me, I'm not just like an investor building a house to rent out. So I think that made them feel more comfortable as well. So after the discussion, I think, yeah, it was very kind of well supported throughout. So other than that, that's really the only other updates that I have.
All right, thank you.
And as far as public comment that I received, I only received 1 call. The woman would not give her address for some reason, but she just wanted to make sure that it wasn't turning into a commercial extension of downtown, and I assured her that within the R2 zoning that would not be permitted.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing if you want to have a seat.
Sure.
This is a public hearing, and this is a rezoning, which is a recommendation from Planning Commission to City Council. I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. If there's anyone that wishes to address the commission on this item, we invite you to the podium. All right, seeing none. we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion. I know we talked about this for some time when before. Really, my only comment I wanted to make at this time is that keep in mind that this is a rezoning. The plans that he provided are very nice, and those are just ideas. The rezoning could potentially house any of the uses and densities and heights once it's rezoned. This is not a conditional rezoning, so it is not tied at all to anything that was graphically. These are all hopefully what ends up there, but the commission's duty is to look at all potential uses that could go there. Again, we're looking at essentially a single-family residential district to a single-family residential district, just a little bit more intensity and allowing for some attached units, which is part of the master plan process. Planning Commission we've talked about extensively throughout the city. So with that, are there questions, comments, discussions from the commission?
I think for discussion, I'd like to move the Planning Commission recommend City Council approve the rezoning request to City Council for 1720 Dover Street, Sidwell number 2425-33229042 from R1 single family residential to R2 single two-family residential with the following conditions after a public hearing was held as set and published, and the state in place and the findings and conditions are included in the packet, including that the applicant will submit a full site plan for staff review and administrative approval at a future date.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussions, clarifications?
Through the chair, I really appreciated all of the detail about exterior treatments. That was something that I had asked about last time, and I'll live right around the block from you, so thank you. The concern that I had was about how some of these materials would age and wear, since they're very different than some of the other neighborhood, particularly potentially some of the untreated wood and other ideas. And my concerns were certainly allayed with the good information that was provided. So thank you. It's very helpful.
Through the chair, comment is I'm in favor of this going to R2 because it's on a public alley, and I think that in this instance it makes sense. I would probably consider it differently if it were not on a public alley, and that comes from our master land use feedback about use for access. I think that meets that.
Do the motion makers approve supporting that as a finding for this rezoning?
Yes.
The seconder as well?
Yes.
That's a good point. So can you add that, Justin, to the findings for this property?
That was a timely discussion.
Yeah.
And, sorry, can you clarify one more time?
That since it's a
Since
it's R2 from R1, and that it's accessed from a public alley. Some of the things we've learned about master land use and increasing density. That's too long, but you get what I'm saying.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
For the presence on public alley. Yes, thank you. All right, any other discussion? In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next up, City Council for you, and good luck. All right, last public hearing of the evening. What Heights?
And I apologize. The it's actually 1201 Woodward Heights. And it says it throughout the report, but the title and the
1201.
Yes, 1201 Woodward Heights.
1201 Woodward Heights. And
You don't want 1225, Joe? What?
Joe. And just if you could give a brief overview of this
Yes.
one, please.
Yes. So obviously Joe has been here a few times over the past few months. Initially acquired 1225 Woodward Heights, the former pizza place in Tokyo Sushi, before this board and council. Council approved the rezoning for that site to be mixed use too. Joe's also acquired the R2 zone parcel adjacent to that, which is 1201 Woodward Heights, intended to be a complementary mixed-use development. There's the initial proposals for a 3-story development within the mixed-use regulation for building height. Upper-level residential is planned for now, and ground floor retail. Combining these properties really helps create a cohesive development as far as shared waste disposal, landscape screening, bicycle parking, things like that. A concept plan was presented last month at the April meeting and received favorable feedback Tonight's motion is for rezoning. Joe and architect would come back with plans for the full site plan at a later date. Use plan identifies this site as urban residential for future land use. The concept plan does include some residential as part of that. So staff recommends approval of the requested rezoning to MXD2. The motion is included in your packet, and as I stated, the applicant would return with a full site plan at a later date, pending this board's approval of the rezoning and City Council's final approval of the rezoning.
All right, thank you. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome. Do you have anything to, I guess, add to the?
No, I think the initial plan that's laid out here is very similar in the scope to what we would be hoping to develop. I think without having that formal rezoning in place, it kind of leaves us in a gray area of advancing with any greater detail, just from a cost standpoint. So certainly achieving the rezoning clarity would help us accelerate our time plan to bring this to life.
Okay, thank you. All right, this is a public hearing, so we do have to go ahead and open the public hearing. So I'll open the public hearing and invite anyone who's in the audience here who wishes to address the commission on this item. Please feel free. Seeing no movement. Did we receive any letters, correspondence, phone calls on this matter?
A business owner, Hank Kinsey, called for clarification and full support. I don't know at the moment, but he was also obvious public hearing.
Okay. All right. With that, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this matter and bring it back to the commission. I'm going to reiterate my comments I made in the last one, that this is a rezoning. It's not a plan, and although it's a site plan, that site plan is not at all binding to this rezoning. The rezoning to go from a residential to a mixed use, which, again, I think there's been a lot of discussion about in this area, and I think we've had enough discussions about this, but just, again, not to get too married to any site plan you may see, because that is not binding as part of this rezoning. So with that, are there any questions, comments, discussion? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll move the Planning Commission recommend City Council approve the rezoning, a request from R2 single 2 family residential to mixed use 2 MXD2 for 1201 Woodward Heights, Sidwell number 242527284001, with the following findings. After public hearing was held and set and published for the date and place, the findings are listed in the packet with the condition that the applicant will submit a full site plan for review and Planning Commission approval at a future date.
Second. Oh, sorry. We have a motion and a rush for support. Discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, on to council for you. Good luck. Thank you. All right, that wraps up our public hearings this evening. Next up, we have discussion items. Is there anything on the agenda for this? All right, that brings us to old business. The first, we have the 22756, the Grasshopper Rooftop Lounge. I guess, Justin, can you introduce it, and then if the applicant could join us, please?
Sure. Troy Ramrup and excuse me. Troy was here last month as part of the discussion item about the Grasshopper Underground, rooftop expansion, and you know, being that this was the first, or could be the first rooftop, rooftop destination in Ferndale, thought it was very appropriate to bring as a discussion item first. Prior to that discussion item, there were a lot of discussions internally with the fire marshal, the police department, the building department, as to how meet fire code, building code, what's going on with the alley. Were discussed, and then once those items were finally ironed out, it seemed appropriate to come to this discussion item. The applicants received favorable feedback, and so they came back with a full site plan, which looks a lot like the site plan that was provided before. The rooftop area would be accessed by patrons through an internal staircase, but there would be an emergency egress stairway located on the west side of the in case of a fire or emergency. It would only be active in the event of an emergency. Below the staircase, there would be a no parking zone that is signaled and signed. The police department does currently use that alley as a for traffic control, and then there's required by state code. There's a 12-foot clearance required from the bottom of the stairway. So all those things would be factored in as part of the building plans and are actually noted on the. As far as not your traditional site plan, obviously. There's some glass panes that are provided to prevent wind blocking on the rooftop. There's some LED lighting that is concealed with brick metal. It's decorative in nature. New planter boxes as well to add some greenery to the site, and some upgrades to the parapet were noted. The light poles are also decorative of nature, sort of a type atmosphere. On the rooftop, there's also some improvements to the, I believe, south side of the project with new restrooms that are outside, and so there is a bit of an element there. Any additional rooftop landscaping would potentially help with stormwater retention. And then as far as building design goes, the highest point would be the toilet room I mentioned, about 42 feet in height. We did review the transit-oriented development design standards that were put in place last year, the year before, and there are some existing conditions, but the height requirements appeared to be met as well. So the applicant is obviously here to answer any questions, but the approval is for plan. Unlike the outdoor we discussed recently, in the CBD it is permitted, so there's no extra special land use. The applicant would be required to go to the DDA Appearance Review Committee for any architectural changes to make sure they're in harmony with the history of downtown.
If I'm here, the fire department requires no additional purchase of equipment to adequately cover this, correct?
Correct. Good question.
Yeah, we did meet with the fire marshal and make sure that we were doing everything that was required, and for fire safety, obviously that's our first concern.
I just want to make sure the ladder reaches.
Yeah.
You can't get a bigger truck.
No.
Right, and also through those conversations, the fire department said that they would not even fire through the alley. It would be on all the other sides potentially, but.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome. Thank you for sitting through this.
Yeah,
fun
hey,
night.
no problem. We've seen big blast all the time. It's great.
Do you have anything to add? I guess I wasn't here at the
No, there was
meeting.
just a few questions you had. I believe Commissioner Azar had a question on the view into the men's room. We took care of that. As you can see, we've got that nice long panel, so when you look into the mirror, it sees a panel instead of a gentleman standing there. That was a good suggestion. We took that. The lighting along the parapet wall, we just clarified that it's really ambiance. It's not to really light up. It has 3 type, look like candle, 60-watt bulbs in there. It's more just aesthetics than it is for actually lighting. And then the heights, I think we had cumulative dimensions on there, but we didn't have a full dimension that showed the entire height. So just a few tweaks, and we're back to see you guys again.
And I apologize again, I wasn't here for the discussion last month, but one of the questions I had, just without, I guess, fully understanding, on the rooftop, explain the skylights. Where
Those are existing skylights.
Right, are they flush with the roof? Are they raised? Are they recessed?
Well, it differs, because right now we start out on the Woodward side. The new roof structure is going to be obviously level. Currently, there's about a 4-foot drop in the roof to the alley. So to combat that, we are coming up with knee walls for the bearing walls for the second floor. They're going to level the entire thing. So when we start out the Woodward side, they will be basically right about floor level. And as a landlord, I also own the building, we want those skylights to still be visible from the tenant suites below. So we're going to put clear plexi over them. So light in at night. And time there's exterior furniture, it's in for Troy to relocate that furniture, so when people come in the next morning, still visible coming into their suite.
Okay, so just so I understand, so the two skylights are flush with the floor. If you're on the rooftop patio, there's not a step up, there's not a step down, they're
Correct.
flush. So the seating that you show around them, that's just the floor.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you. That was lost on me on the 2D.
Yeah, we want to
plan.
maintain those. I mean, everybody, when you go into, never been in our building before, when you go into those suites, that's the first thing you notice. You walk in, we've taken out all the 1970 lay-in ceilings, and it's all drywalled, beautiful skylights. Our tenants moved into that building. That was one of the major elements, and we want to maintain that, obviously.
Okay. I was trying to understand, like I said, the relationship,
Yeah,
how
no, I
they're
know.
protruding
It is a
or
little
not
confusing.
protruding. Okay.
And there are more than two. I think there's 6.
And the other one's being covered up? Or-
No, none of them are being covered. All of them, whenever there is a new floor elevation, over those skylights will be clear plexi inserted in there.
Gotcha.
So you'll always
Just a couple
maintain
ones like that.
the daylight coming in.
Gotcha. Okay. Understood.
Yep.
Okay. Other questions, concerns?
Is there an elevator?
No.
And
It's-
the choice not accessible?
Well, the first floor grasshopper, not to the roof.
Could you discuss your choice not to make it accessible?
It's all the same use. It's not required by Michigan Beer Free, but
No, I'm just asking is to not make it accessible.
80 grand.
Money?
Yeah. And we'd have to take out part of a suite, second floor to get to the third floor. All those are existing leases in place.
Another question, there's rooftop mechanical, is that all being relocated, or is that still?
No,
gonna
that
occur
will, all the existing rooftop mechanical will now be underneath the new floor structure. So there'll be vents built in to get fresh air to the, because there's an existing unit for the second floor that will be, I think on the plan you can see, it's like, it's still open air. And the large 20-ton Aeon unit that is more towards the center of the plan, where the floor structure bumps up another, I think, 2.5 feet. That'll be underneath the floor structure.
And you'd
That's
be
the one
able
that
to-
feeds downstairs for grasshopper.
So there's a way to get at it from
Yes.
below and
Yep.
maintain it and all that kind
Yeah,
of stuff?
we've got to maintain 3-foot clear doors on the side of the HVAC units to change filters and maintenance and all that kind of
Any
stuff. That
other
will.
noise or heat from that would be a concern for?
No.
Sorry, it's me this time.
Other thoughts, questions, clarifications on this?
Just 2 questions for the commission and/or staff.
Sure.
Not for the applicant, so I can hold if you want.
Go for it.
It came up in the initial discussion. This microphone is so loud. But I don't think we kind of answered. It was a question into the ether. This will be our first rooftop patio. There isn't anything in the existing ordinance addresses should any of the be unique site plan situations you could encounter, given the height or the outdoor access or the sound, or is there any need to add something to the ordinance about rooftop patio? Can we adequately, if suddenly we have a clamoring for 4 more or 5 more?
Wouldn't this be covered by the noise ordinance, any noise ordinance in the commercial district?
Right.
Yep.
And the outdoor seating. I think maybe if there was concerns about height, maybe a couple, I think you need a whole separate ordinance to a couple thoughts in the
Not trying
outdoor
to
seating.
overcomplicate it.
Yeah,
Just
in the
wondering.
outdoor seating section, they could talk about if on a rooftop, that there's coordination with the fire department to ensure, access and
Thinking about
concerns about
thinking about
views.
some of Kramer's issues in Royal Oak, and we are in a different spot with this, right at 9 and Woodward, but if you were at the opposite end of the block, you're now abutting residential, and it's a very different conversation about how sound travels. So,
Yeah, we're
just question.
in
But
the
you guys
cross-
are in exactly the right spot.
Yeah, we're in the crosshairs of the DDA, right? I mean, 9 and Woodward.
But you're also probably the furthest from residential you could be in BNCDA,
Right,
right?
exactly. And
Yeah, totally.
we designed and built Brian Kramer's Diablos and
He's just right
Royal
next
Oak.
to residential, right? So it's
Right.
like a
all kinds of issues with that.
Tough-
In the
tough
design
spot.
process when we
Yeah.
did that for Brian.
I didn't know about that. Oh, cool. I should
As
ask you.
building owner, the architect, going to be the contractor, Troy is the owner. That's why we put the planter. We could have just gone right to the edge, put a railing that went 42 inches, and people could lean over and look at the sidewalk. We didn't want that. We wanted to keep them back. That's why we added the planter another 12 inches behind the 12-inch parapet wall. So now you're 2 foot. We don't want people dropping anything off there. We don't need people hanging over the edge. You know, public safety is a big issue for us as building owners. We don't want anyone getting hurt either on the street or up on the deck. So that's kind of the conditions that we put on Troy when we said, you know, he came to said, we want to do this. I'm like, okay, well, this is what we want. So
From what you've learned in Royal Oak, really probably the closest residential to you is kind of behind Como's. You know, like, is there, does that planter wall reflect things back, or is it a noise buffer for you in front?
Well,
Just based on what you
residential cross
said.
would probably be on the side of
I think so too.
their backyards.
Oh, on Saratoga.
Yeah.
Saratoga.
And it worked out very well to have the stair corridor and the bathrooms wrap around basically the 2 sides hugging that. So we're basically facing the DDA. I mean,
Interesting.
to get the noise level over the street noise of trucks and motorcycles and
This is not Woody's, I understand.
yeah,
This is not,
this doesn't come any close.
but that
to
doesn't
so-
mean that someone's not going to come and raise their hand in 2 months and want it built.
Yeah, we're never
Woody's
going to
on
be
top of
overdone by Como's patio. So. we're
And then
fine.
my other sort of just maybe question, maybe not, to the commission is that we just went through a process and a discussion with the DDA about limiting liquor license expansions. And so we're essentially, some of that had to do with a parking issue and, you know, traffic issues, and that we're now expanding peak hour usage in this bar nightclub space. They've got the liquor license to do it, doesn't require any liquor license, so that prohibition, I don't want to say moratorium because it wasn't necessarily, but doesn't apply in this case. But we've found I guess a loophole to something that the DDA thought that they were putting in place to limit bar expansions.
Yeah, we actually
No
started
judgment.
Yeah, no, it's okay. We started this conversation back in November with the city.
Yeah.
And that's when we started pulling everybody in from police to fire to Justin and really kind of make it work for everybody.
Yeah.
So we were kind of like way before that. Then it started coming like, are we okay? Like, oh, yeah. Oh,
If it were a brand new liquor license, it'd be a different conversation.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
Oh,
Well, I mean, the DDA, I guess I'm just saying nothing's foolproof or bulletproof, right? So if you wanted to address the expansions of bars and nightclubs and cars and blah, blah, blah during peak hours, we've found a way to do it within the restriction that the DDA tried to put on it.
I would say that those options are very limited because these plans were put forth.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not because, I'm not saying I don't like the project, I'm just saying that the
Right.
DDA maybe didn't think of it, or,
They didn't. To Commissioner Baker's point, being a DDA board member too, this is not within the spirit of that agreement. It's true to the letter of the law that we passed, but the spirit of the agreement would prohibit something like this. And again, I'm not against this project,
No, not at all.
but I would expect pushback as this becomes more socialized, not with DDA employees, but with board members. Because there's a belief that one path was struck, if you will, that again, the letter of the law, it's fine. But the spirit of that is going to, I think you will find some conflict with some DDA board members.
then I guess through the chair, the DDA board may need to revisit their logic.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think I think your point's well taken and important because it will come up.
I
I
was-
don't know that it has to bear on our decision here tonight for this, but you're absolutely right. That policy discussion between council and the DDA board My opinion is this clearly goes against the spirit of that.
I'm still voting for it.
That's a good point.
Just point, that's all. I would happily make a motion if there are any, I don't want to,
I have a
if there are
question.
other questions, so, yeah.
To the applicant, so you won't remove the signs, you have a lease for those. And one of them is got the bar up against it, so it's not accessible. How are you separating the other sign from people accessing it, the large billboard?
The two billboards?
Yes.
Well, you can't access them from the back side. They actually have a ladder that they hook on when they go up there. They're not going to be allowed to hook on a ladder.
So what's separating, I mean, do you have a rail, especially in the southeast corner? Do you have a rail, or what's separating someone from getting to the structure? Because it's going to be more accessible now that they're on the roof. How is it separated?
Is there a height differential? Could someone reach up?
No, they still won't be able to reach the platform. The platform's very high off of the roof. And like I said, when they get up, the company comes up and they've got a ladder that they hook on the back, and they climb up about 10 foot to get on that structure to change out the. So we're leaving access still for them because of their lease. We still have to allow them to get to their sign to change them out, but it will not be accessible. If at any point where we feel that if it's something that somebody can jump up and grab, then we'd put a gate in place, and then the sign company would get a key that they would open and then access for changing out. But
So how far toward that, I'm just not able to read that part of the plan. How far toward the structure do they get? Do they get all the way to that corner, or is it cut off by a wall?
It looks like you can walk right from
no,
underneath it.
yeah, the diagonal of the two signs separates those corners. There's no access by public. One is blocked off. Yeah, the plane's not up there. I'm not sure how to work this.
I can pull it up.
Is it that? Is this separated?
The southwest corner. Right?
Southeast.
Yeah, I get my directions right here.
Southeast corner.
And while we're calling up the plan, what's your maintenance agreement with them? Let's say that somebody finds a way to push some furniture, or, while you're not there, graffiti or something goes up. What's the maintenance of the sign? Like if we find it's being marked up and so on, is there a certain period they have to come and clean it up or change it out?
The billboard signs, we don't do anything with. They pay us a fee every year, and they're responsible for maintaining the sign.
So if you find some mess up there from somebody accessing, how then take care of it?
If somebody, say, threw a cup up there or something, that would be for Troy to. I'm not sure how. I guess a good question. Because I wouldn't want somebody that's inexperienced up there trying to get a cup off of
Well, no, not
a sign structure,
worried about
but
a cup. I'm worried about maybe graffiti or something that's more visible. If it's cut off and nobody can get there, that's fine. I'm just wondering if
right.
something.
Well, it's kind
happens
of
with maintenance.
it's been the same situation for probably 25 years that I've owned the building.
So if you had graffiti on the back wall at the alley, you'd take care of it. And
Oh yeah,
if it
definitely.
happens up there,
Oh yeah,
you'd
we
go
get
to-
the
Just wanna make sure it doesn't
graffiti
sit there
down that
forever.
alley all the time, and we go out there and repaint the electrical boxes and the back door to Pro Guitar and the back door to. It
I'm
happens.
just thinking if someone's on the roof, then they want to find a way, and then once they find a way, it's going to be a magnet for other people, and then do you have means or an agreement to figure out if and when? So.
No, he's going to call me.
Okay.
I'm going to go out there and take care of it.
Just so, what is the separator?
It's a huge steel structure. It crisscrosses. There's beams that run across there. There will be a fence.
So you look like you've got occupiable area up to here. What?
Right.
What?
There will be a fence along there.
A fence. Okay, that's what I was.
And then on the other side, I was thinking of the bar side. The bar side is all blocked off by the bar.
Okay, so there's a fence keeping them from.
Yes.
That corner of the building.
Yes.
How high?
It'll be at least a 5-foot fence. It's going to match the fence that goes along the alley side. It'll be a metal.
All right, and then I couldn't tell that any of the structure doesn't come up to the height of
Well, that's going to have a slope, stainless steel metal roof on it.
Oh, okay.
Yep, it's going to pitch back onto the roof because we don't want to pitch off onto the alley. We want to maintain our own water.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look for any conditions that somebody's going to try and get to something that's now a lot closer than it ever has been.
Right, well, that's going to be an 8-foot wall with a roof on it.
Okay.
Behind the structure.
There's something that differs from Grass Hopper from many of the restaurant bars, clubs in Ferndale. From the second those doors open, there's always security on presence. And on this structure, there'll be multiple security every time those doors open at multiple corners. So it stops even the idea of, I think I will grab this chair, and for someone to kind of tell you it's not going to be a good idea. So we make sure to protect our patrons sometimes from themselves.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, comments, discussion? Otherwise, look for a motion.
I move in the matter of 22757 Woodward Avenue, that the Planning Commission approve the site plan based on plans dated received by the Planning Department on May 12, 2016, with the following findings and subject to the following conditions. Findings as stated, really the only condition in here is that prior to final site plan approval, the applicant will submit an application to the DDA Appearance Review Committee.
We have a motion. Do we have support?
Support.
We have a motion and support. Any further discussion, questions?
Could I possibly add a condition in there? As discussed, the fence, because we don't see it on the site plan, I would like for that to be added as a condition that we ensure that a fence is separating the southeast corner sign from public.
Sign structure from the deck area. Yep.
Right.
I would accept that amendment.
On my notes.
The motion Porter support that, so we have a friendly amendment to add that to condition number 2. Any other questions, clarifications? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
I am, with comment.
Okay.
That I'm excited about it, and I'm glad we're looking toward rooftop gardens. My upset is that it's not accessible, and I think our first one or any of them should be made accessible.
Noted. All right.
All right.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
When do you anticipate opening this rooftop? Is this for the summer?
Well, yeah, we're hoping we can squeeze in the last month or two. The architecturals are nearing completion. We're going to go through appearance review and hopefully start construction here soon.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, old business. We have B 430 West 9 Mile, a revised site plan.
And before this moves forward, will this be talking, the development that's happening, potentially happening behind?
Potentially, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to recuse myself.
You can stay. Yeah.
You're welcome.
I'm just going to.
Okay. All right. So we do have Commissioner Showalter excusing himself from a conflict of interest, as that is where he resides.
What there was the one with the side-by-side.
All right. Well, Justin's loading up.
We're good.
Oh. You good? Justin, do you want to give a brief introduction?
Sure.
And then Peter?
Were you here for this one?
I was not for the discussion. I was here when we approved it originally, but it was pretty brief. I know, and I was actually kind of surprised.
Well, because it's off peak.
Okay. So Peter was here last month representing Ferndale House Lofts and Design House Architecture. We talked a lot initially about a potential rezoning for 475 Withington in order to connect the two sites and provide some temporary parking for a potential expansion of an office use at the northeast corner of the Ferndale House Loft property, former Save-A-Lot. After going through a lot of the discussion, talking about shared parking agreements and that potential rezoning. The direction, I think, from the commission was to not potentially rezone an R4 property just for parking, and potentially to move forward with some shared parking agreement, and to have staff administratively approve it. In looking at the ordinance, that's not something I could administratively approve, and I thought it would be important for you to see the most revised site without that 475 Withington space. Design House revised the site plan, and the developer secured a shared parking agreement with Ferndale Foods for, I'll have Peter confirm the number. I think initially it was talked about at over 30 spaces at Ferndale Foods. And the shared parking agreement would be sort of a temporary measure in order as the development of the other 3 sites on Withington potentially are developed. In looking further, that addition of office, about 5,000 square feet, eliminated some of the existing parking, and actually brought the on-site parking below, I believe, to 78 parking spaces on site. So initially, way back in September, the Planning Commission approved, the site plan for 90 residential units, a small retail space, and a leasing office, and there were to be, I believe, 91 parking spaces on site, and the Planning Commission granted a 3-space waiver to complement the retail and office space. So I thought it'd be good for Peter to come back and clarify, and the Planning Commission can discuss, how many spaces they are comfortable with on site. Again, the proposed plan right now includes 78 spaces on site. Our upper level residential ordinance in the CBD requires 1 space per unit. So this would be a waiver while considering a shared parking agreement that was larger than what was previously proposed. I'll let Peter kind of go from there, but I'm here to answer any potential questions. It would be a site plan revision as well as reduction of parking requirements.
I like how you did that. Ferndale Foods doesn't let anybody park there. We tried for years.
I think that's what, yeah.
Yep.
I'll let Peter talk to it.
Okay, thanks for staying up for
You know.
me. And I hope you get credit for being the planning commission with the most stamina I've ever seen in my life.
Well, we know you wanted to come back, so.
I did, but it's late for me. I don't know what's going on. My name is Peter Stuhlreier with Design House Architecture, 301 Walnut, Rochester, Michigan, representing Ferndale House LLC. So when the 3 lots became something that could become in play for additional parking and townhouses, the developers went back in their memories and in their notes and thought about adding real office space on the corner, on the primary corner, facing the main part of town. It also is abutting the park. It makes that lower level that we were and still are in some cases covering as if it were still conventional streetscape and street frontage of a commercial building. Now it's the real deal, and it's about 5,000 square feet. So I asked Mr. Karp to approach Ferndale Foods and get a waiver for as many parking spaces as he could, knowing that when we go into Phase 2, if Phase 2 does include the 3 parcels, at least one of which is under contract, and the other 2, I believe, are in the beginning phases, and it's a relative certainty that they'll be acquired. But I asked him to get as many spaces as he could, so that when we go into the construction period, we have parking that we can use when we're disturbing the parking that's here. But it's entirely up to the administration and the design effort to figure out how that Phase 2 works. How many of those cars are part of Phase 2? How many of them are part of Phase 1? How many of them stay in Ferndale Foods? So at this point, we know we're covered and then some. And I think that's the important part. And we really don't want to make a contingency on this site plan based on what happens going forward on Phase 2, which we call Phase 2, the 3 lots to the north. So what we're saying is, can we get an approval for the revised site plan showing the office space and the parking agreement with Ferndale Foods, so that in a few weeks, when I submit working drawings for a building permit, I'm actually submitting these based on an approved site plan. So that's what we're here for.
Okay, couple of questions, just so I understand. So Phase 1, as you describe it, is essentially the building that you've already had approved, hopefully with an office component, a larger office component than originally. Phase 2 is essentially those other 3 lots that you see as some type of residential moving forward as well, with some type of communal parking.
Right.
For the both sites.
That's right.
Okay. Your lease agreement with Ferndale Foods, is it for 5 years, I see?
Yes.
I'm just wondering what happens if Phase 2 doesn't happen and 5 years expires? And they opt to not renew?
That's a very good question. I think that Phase 2, the ownership is, the acquisition of the property is extraordinarily probable. One of them is already done. So, and the one that's done actually can't accommodate all the parking we're talking about. So, in the worst case scenario, it's already there.
Gotcha. Okay. So, and just so I understand, so currently on the revised plan, you have 78 parking spaces on site with a parking agreement for 40 spaces at Ferndale Foods. The one we originally approved had 91 spaces?
91.
With no off-site, correct?
No off-site.
Okay. And so I'm just, so with the addition of the office, you lost 13 spaces?
I think 12 or 13, yeah. I thought it was 12. I thought it was a 90-90. I thought it was 91, maybe. Yeah, let's call it 13.
Okay. But then so you lost 13 spaces, but then you added office space.
Right.
Are there requirements for parking for office, or is it exempt because it's downtown?
I think as it's new, it's required. It's one per 300 square feet.
Okay, so how many additional parking spaces are required as a result of the additional office, I guess is my question. Because it's not only a loss of the original spaces, it's also a loss of the additional square footage that we're adding.
That's correct. Well, we use the factoring, you know, the 80% factoring on the my chart. Do you have that
actually
number, Justin?
The CBD parking exception does include office.
Okay, that's what I was trying to understand.
It's everything other than upper level residential.
Okay, so it's just the loss of
right.
the 13 spaces because of the additional office, but there's no additional requirements. So we've already approved a waiver of how many spaces?
3.
3. So we're asking for additional 10 tonight?
That makes sense.
I just want to understand, I wanted to quantify exactly what was being changed now.
I think the waiver is larger because those upper level residential units are technically off site now, correct? So because there'd be 78 on site, and then you would need the other 13. I mean, so the waiver is 13. You're right, but okay, never mind.
So we approved 5. So we're asking for 8 more.
Approved 3.
Oh, I'm sorry, approved 3, so asking for 10 more.
Yes, 10 more.
Okay. That was what I wanted to clarify.
Yes.
Okay.
It is confusing for Oh.
Could I ask a question about the proposed parking lot lease agreement?
Yes.
I see it's currently not executed, and I'm wondering what that execution is contingent upon. Is it upon site plan approval?
I am not certain whether I just got an email of the PDF that was written. I didn't get a scan of the executed agreement.
Okay.
But I'm sure, we can wrap this into issuance of any kind of bogeys moving forward, like building
Okay.
permits and things. But
One of the questions I had about the office space, and I know we talked about this when the plans were originally before us. I can't remember where I read it. If it was in your comments, Peter, I can't find it right now. But so the office is to be accessed internally through the lobby, correct?
there are two main entrances. There's one directly to the sidewalk on the furthest east of the south-facing storefront, and there's one from inside the main lobby. The one from inside the main lobby goes into a proposed common corridor that leads all the way to the back and comes out the north. Now,
Okay, but there is I'm sorry, that's one. So there is a door directly off of the sidewalk, the public
yes,
sidewalk.
yeah, the objective would be to put one tenant, and they would come right off the sidewalk, and we wouldn't worry about a common hall or shared bathrooms. If we have multiple tenants, we can accommodate the furthest south tenant from the sidewalk entrance, and all the others from the lobby going through a hallway and out the back.
Are you willing to limit the uses at this to just office and not
Retail? Oh, yeah.
retail and restaurants?
Yeah, we didn't, we haven't have no interest in retail and restaurant.
Currently, but things, 5 years, who knows? Just put,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, our discussion on this building has always been whatever common area was in the ground floor was always office. I haven't heard anything from the development team that retail or restaurant weren't interested. And I thought there was something when we first started that said, you're not putting food service or bars on that site.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was one of the conditions that I'm.
Right.
That
I just
was
want
an
to clarify,
original
because now that you have a lot more space, I mean, before it was a very small space, that not a whole lot could go in there, but now you have a large space, it becomes more enticing to retail and restaurant use because of the size.
Yeah, well, I don't have a chase going up through the building for a hood, so
Okay.
that would be a problem.
I think I read somewhere in here about there was in discussions about improvements to the park there. Did I read that somewhere?
Yes, the park will be disturbed to a degree when we construct the east side, and I think Justin and the development team are working on assigning a value to that, so that whatever goes back can be more directed by your city, and it doesn't have to match what's there if you don't want it to. So we'll put back whatever you want based on the value.
Correct. We're having discussions about that right now, because currently on the building right now there is kind of a wide planter bed that is attached to the Save-A-Lot building right now, and so we are kind of evaluating, what other placemaking type, improvements can be made that will make it it's our only downtown park. So this is the time to kind of relook at it. Keeping the tree coverage, but also maybe providing more seating areas and things like that. Yeah, I mean, we've even talked about. Well, actually, we're also talking about the alley right now as well, and improving the lot line on the Housing Commission side. And I believe the Housing Commission is putting together a list of what they would like to see out of that agreement as well. It has not been finalized, but that's part of the alley that'll be coming in a month or so, and then the park improvements we're handling internally with the DDA in conjunction with the Parks Department as well.
Okay. And that would be, again, the discussion that what would be funded via the applicant versus the city. Because I'm assuming
Correct.
they're creating the disruptions, they were
Correct.
funding the replacement, but I'm sure
Yes.
they're not going to.
Yes. There's been a lot of
Chevy with a Corvette. But
Right. There's been a lot of ideas thrown out there by residents, the developer, department in general, but now is the time that we're working on getting all these in writing.
Okay. I guess that's why I asked about the access, make sure there wasn't any access points coming in off of the park, so
There
that's
are
all
not.
off of.
There are not.
Okay. Questions, other thoughts?
Through the chair, are you going to be for the different units? Is there an intention that some units will have assigned parking spaces and some won't? Or is the intention that it's going to be common parking, it's first come, first served?
That's a good question for the management company. So I would think that it's a little bit of both, but considering that it's limited parking, maybe the covered parking would be a premium and would be charged a couple $100 on the rent, and the uncovered wouldn't be. The off-site may be even no premium, would be a discount. I'm not sure.
One of the issues I see here is if you have it all first come, first served, and you have 78 spaces for 91 units plus the office, you're going to significantly increase the traffic through that parking area.
Right, looking for, trying to pick off a space.
Right.
Most of these are assigned because they have different levels of quality based on the parking space itself. And remember, the majority of the units in the building are small, like studio small. So we probably have enough parking with the numbers that we're putting up there. So is it assigned? I don't think that decision's been made yet, but I'd have to talk to the management company to find out how they're feeling about that.
And to that point, in the proposed lease agreement, they do identify that it would be that cars parked at the Ferndale Foods lot would have an identifying sticker. So that would have to be some kind of an assignment.
That would be, right. But it
At
would
least
say
for
for
those.
Arbor, or for
Right.
Ferndale House only,
Right.
And that would, I don't know that they'd be numbered per the unit, but they might be. I mean, that's a great question. They might have to be.
Through the chair, so they have a start date of January 2018. How does that align with the completion of the construction? The start date of the shared lease agreement, how does that overlap with the occupancy of your building?
Well, if we, looks like we're doing demo in May, in June, and so 16 months from there would be when? That would put us, yeah.
October,
right.
November.
Yeah, that puts you right in there, January of 18.
So you're leasing up in fall 17, potentially?
Well, they'll
In
probably
advance.
start leasing
Yeah, start leasing.
ASAP, but, when they open, probably.
Sorry, yeah, you're starting
Yeah.
occupancy.
Yeah, we'll be open in
Sure.
early 18, late 17.
Through the chair, it looks like for the plan that there's still an opening to the property that backs up to Withington. Is that?
Well,
That's still
there's
just phase one?
there's still some access needed for, I think there's a garage that backs
Yep.
up to it.
So you mentioned in phase two, disruption to phase one. What would you envision as being disrupted? Just that initial surface spaces out there, those 20?
Yeah, like setting up construction here would be a lot more convenient than setting it up on the street on Withington and then building on that site. You might have contractor parking and a trailer and things to build that site, and that may displace a half a dozen or a dozen cars.
Gotcha.
That we would like to have the ability to give to the tenants
Okay.
next door.
Okay. Any questions, concerns, comments?
Through the chair, Justin, do we know how many spaces total there are in the Ferndale Foods parking lot?
I do not have that information.
An infinite number.
It's several hundred.
Infinity.
Okay.
Poorly striped.
And I think we're probably only talking about some of the behind the loading dock against the wall spaces.
I mean, if there's 78 proposed for this site, I have to imagine there's at least 120, probably 200. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think that site's about, totally, is at least twice as big as this.
Yeah.
And the building's half the footprint, so
Yeah.
a couple hundred.
I'd make a motion, if there are any other questions. On the site plan first. I would move in the matter of 430 West 9 Mile Road that the Planning Commission approve the site plan based on plans dated received by the Planning Department on May 17, 2016, with findings as enumerated in the motion, and subject to the condition that prior to site plan approval, the applicant will submit plans to the DDA Appearance Review Committee for changes to the facade.
Support?
We have a motion
I feel
and
like they've already
support.
done that.
I feel like, and I don't know if this, I'm being redundant, but when I looked at this motion, it felt like a new motion, and I kind of want to make sure this is a revised site plan that's really contingent upon the original site plan that we had. And I don't know if there's a way in the findings we can state that this is essentially substantially the same plan that we previously approved, with the only modification being the additional.
Through the chair, I don't think it's a finding, it's a condition. It would be a second condition, I think. You could say that, yeah, that it's conditional upon all the terms and agreements in the first.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I don't
whichever
know
way you did it, yeah, I understand what you're going for.
But yeah, I think even more about the finding about that really the only change was that we've increased the amount of usable ground space, which is in keeping with the goal of having an active downtown. That's why we're.
Okay.
So I don't know if that fits more as a finding.
Whichever's fine.
The person who made the motion would think it makes sense as a finding.
Okay.
All right, I'll support.
Okay, so did you catch that, Justin, for the motion that, or in the finding, we added finding number 4, that the Planning Commission found that the plans are substantially in accordance with the previously approved plans, with the exception that they've increased usable ground space, which is in keeping with the intent of the downtown.
Yep.
Yeah, ground floor office space.
Yes, ground floor office.
Ground floor office.
Okay. Other thoughts, comments? Okay, let's do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion passes. And note that we do have one commissioner, Showalter, who has recused himself. And then we do have a follow-up for the reduction of parking requirements.
I would move in the matter of 430 West 9 Mile Road, the Planning Commission approve the reduction of parking requirements based on plans dated received by the Planning Department on May 9, 2016. Due to one or more of the following findings, sorry, there was just a typo, and subject to the following conditions, I would add a condition. So first, the condition number 1 is that the proposed shared parking agreement, that the signed shared parking agreement be filed with the city. We've got the proposed shared parking agreement, I want the signed one. But also the condition that the ground floor, that the new ground floor space is for office use, since that really ties to the number of parking spaces we've been talking about.
Okay.
Support.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and support. Any discussions, questions, clarifications? I just want to state for the record, so again, there were 3 previously approved, and this reduction is for an additional 10 spaces based on our calculations.
Would you like that as finding number 3?
Sure.
Okay. Then I would make an amendment, if the seconder agrees, that we add a finding number 3, that the initial parking reduction of 3 spaces has now been updated to 13.
I think that helps us. We have a motion and a second, a friendly amendment, and any other discussions, questions? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, and once again, Commissioner Showalter is excused. All right, congrats, good luck, proceed.
All right, good night.
Have a good night. Okay, that's it for old business.
Shall we call Matt back in?
I'm sorry? Oh, yes.
Oh, hey, Matt.
You're welcome, Megan. All right. Seeing no new business on the agenda? We do have
A
call
quick,
of- Oh, you do?
well, a quick administrative item, so later.
Well, that's later.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay. Call the audience. If anyone in the audience wants to say anything further, address the commission?
A couple quick questions.
Sure.
I'm Warren Morse for 140 East Maplehurst. A couple quick questions on the public hearing from earlier. One, when they mentioned, I don't like that we couldn't say something afterwards because a couple things were not addressed. When they said their hours of operation, I got 11 to 8. Okay, 11 to 8, Monday through Friday, 7 days a week. Never what actual days they're going to be. Now, the other thing is, before everything was brought up, no one said anything about what their occupancy was. So we've got, from what they said, 24 seating inside, 30 to 31 outside, 3 employees. So you've got available seating plus carry out for 55 people and only using 3 employees. Them are some good employees. I'd like to get them. The other thing is that you're saying that they're only short 1 parking spot. They have 7 on site, 2 up front, and a possibility of 2 on the side. So 14 parking spots for 55 patrons, plus people coming for carryout and employees. I want to know who's doing the math. There's no way you can have 11 parking spots for almost 60 people. Unless they're all coming in a bus, because that's a lot. I mean, most cars, 4 people. It's, even at 44th, that's 11 right there, and that's not, any of their employees. And then they're talking about using New York Bagel Factory. New York Bagel Factory, I've lived here for 25 years. New York Bagel Factory is busy from before the crows and roosters are up in the morning until mid-afternoon. There's not an open spot in there. And even if they give them after hours, that's only 2 hours. They close at 6, they're open till 8. That's only, opening it up for just a little bit. So, my main thing is that parking. I don't know how you guys figured that they're only short 1, because that is a major issue.
Well, in terms of parking, the ordinance has set standards for how much spaces are required based on a formula. Restaurants, there are different types of restaurants. There's standard sit-down restaurants, which are what you think of when you go somewhere and you have a waiter or waitress come to you and serve your tables. That has 1 ratio of parking. And then there's a separate carry-out kind of fast food restaurant. You think of a McDonald's and things of that nature. That's where you get your food yourself and you eat it yourself and you move on. Those types of restaurants usually aren't filled to capacity like you'd see at a restaurant where you have a wait on a Saturday night. These are more, you come in, you grab some stuff to go, you take it home, or you sit at the picnic table outside and you eat it. But it's more of a quick, casual, not a sit-down dinner. You're going on a nice night out in town. So there are different parking requirements that have been vetted through various codes and ordinances and communities throughout the times, and there's different requirements for those. So the restaurant today was considered a carry-out restaurant, not a sit-down restaurant. So I think that's maybe some of the confusion that you're having about the number of seats versus...
Well, it still doesn't matter. I mean, whether it's carry-out, sit-down, you have seating for 55 people. If you have 55 people there, you have to have spot for 55 people to park. Not necessarily 55, because people are going to come in as a group or whatever, but still, 11 spots to fit almost 60 people just doesn't seem to work. And then the deal with the fence. I do appreciate you talking about wanting the brick wall on the back, because that chain link fence, it is bent. It has been hit so many times. Like I said, I've replaced my fence numerous times, and that fence it's hit, it's old, it's dated, it's atrocious. And then if you were to go through and just remove that chain link fence, now you have people that are going to just be driving in and out anywhere. At least with the fence the way it is, you're directing a car going strictly in or out one spot. You get rid of that fence. Now, without that fence there, the one telephone pole that you asked about is going to get hit, because it gets hit because it's right on the edge of that gate. As you can see, there's quite a few chunks taken out of that one. And like I said, the ice, I had 2 come flying through my front yard. The one, I was out mowing my lawn, and he came through and shot right through, right between a big tree and my fence, and I had tire tracks all the way across it. So, and I've been up on my roof. I've had numerous talks with the auto shop, because one of their porters used to think he could hit every gears in a stick shift going through the alley. And I've gone in, and because it used to be Randy was the owner of that one, and I've already had discussions with the new owners and managers of Automatrix many times. So, you know, the alley is a big thing, because people think it's a drag strip right through there. And I do have my parking. I have a couple parking spots right on the alley. And when the other lady said something about, you know, being blocked by them from Automatrix, yes, we're blocked all the time, where I have to either wait for them to move or I've got to back down the driveway. Now I've got people coming in and out of there, blocking it, so it makes it even harder would be getting harder getting out of my driveway. So, but you know, my main thing is the fence and the parking, because I think that's going to be a huge deal. So,
well, like I said, this body, there's certain things in our jurisdiction and certain things that aren't. Like I said, we talked about potentially a permit parking program that could be instituted in your block. The city is doing elsewhere. Justin's going to follow up with the DPW department to see if there's anything we can do about the alley in terms of its slopes, and to see if we can avoid some of the ponding that happens that causes all that icing over.
yeah.
In terms of the use, again, we're looking at the uses that are permitted and the reuse of a building, and trying to bring the site up into as much compliance as we can. I don't know if you, at the end of the discussion, essentially ended with that rear of the property that faces your property. The side closest to the building will be a solid masonry wall, and the other side will be an ornamental fence that wraps around that utility pole around the sidewalk. So it will not be an open area, but it will be partly masonry wall, partly ornamental fence.
Okay, yeah, because the gentleman's like, well, the house behind me doesn't anywhere near the parking lot. I sit on my deck, and it's right in line with his parking lot.
Yeah.
So, but, all right, those were my concerns.
Well, we appreciate you sitting through. I know sometimes public hearings can be frustrating, but in the essence of keeping order with a full room, you can't really have an ongoing dialogue with every single person in the room. And so the general format is to hear all the comments, address them at the level here without having a dialogue.
Well, that's what I was
between
hoping for,
200 people.
that the call to audience was going to be that. I bit my tongue through a few parts there, so. But I appreciate it, and, you know, I appreciate that we had to stay this long. You guys had to stay this long.
And
so.
keep in mind, the police are always a resource if you are blocked in. I mean, but
Oh,
the
I
alley
know.
is
I
a
would-
public alley, and you should never have restricted access to your driveway on a public alley.
Right.
So.
Well, I used to have people park in my parking spots in the back, and the police came, oh, well, there's nothing I can do. So we have a thing like New York Bagel Factory. I have a Monahan's Towing. I paid the $13, best $13 I ever spent, because I've never had a car parked there since. Because then they just come, hook it up, no questions asked. So, all right, so you guys have a great night.
Hopefully they have lovely sandwiches, and you will love going there. And it's going to be your dinner for 2 nights a week from now on.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, for administrative items, Justin.
Real quick, in February, there was a discussion about 1725 Pinecrest, Dr. Flagg's previous dentist office. It's zoned R1. With staff internally, there's been many conversations in the fall with a rabbi who would like to turn the building into primarily his residence, but also have some religious, he doesn't call them services, he says events and discussions, gatherings. And so he's been contacting myself, the mayor. He ended up buying the building. And I've told him many times, you know, if this is your primary residence, great, you can do that. However, the uses you're talking about fall under the Institutions for Religious Worship ordinance, and so you would be required to go through special land use. So he's contemplating that right now. Within the ordinance for institutions of religious worship, there's a minimum lot area of 2 acres. And this site does not fall under, would not meet that criteria, and I think many of the institutions in the city would probably not meet that criteria either. So I wanted to know potentially if this commission would entertain a text amendment to remove that minimum lot size. You know, I mean, when looking through the ordinance, I didn't see any other minimum lot size requirements for specific uses like that. And so it seemed to be just a one-off requirement that maybe was done years ago. I'm not sure.
To answer your direct question, my answer would be yes. I'd be more than happy to entertain that. But to clarify, he's looking at this as a Jewish community center, including with an art gallery in the garage.
I haven't heard. That's new to me.
Well, he posted it on Facebook.
Okay.
Who knows what it turns out to be. He's also our 2016 Good Neighbor Award recipient. So he has, not that that matters
Not
to
being a
anything
good
here,
neighbor right
but
now.
he's publicly recognized, you know, and so I would say, you know, tread lightly, and I would certainly be in favor of removing that. You have to have 2 acres to worship? I don't understand that.
Yeah. So my suggestion to him was he could not make it this evening. I said, come back with some concrete plans, not a lot of what ifs, like
He's
concrete.
not a really detail guy.
Yes.
I'll be honest. You know.
Yeah, that's what I'm learning.
Yeah.
But I told him to come back with some more solidified plans of what, and we'll have a discussion. There won't be a decision possibly next month. But if the lot, that text amendment didn't happen, his point is pretty much moot. He would have to go for a variance, which it would be very tough, I think, for him to prove a hardship in that instance. But
Right. Justin and I have talked about this quite a bit, and I think just from a zoning perspective, I know a lot of times older ordinances had minimum acreages for sites. A lot of times they're institutional nature, where they be schools, places of worship, hospitals, cemeteries, things of that nature. I think in our community, in today's day and age, with what we're trying to do, and even just looking around at places of worship in the community, there's a number of non-conforming churches on my block. 2 actually on my block, but and so I don't necessarily see the point of the minimum acreage anymore at this point. And so I said, if the commission doesn't have a whole lot of heartburn with it, I think this would be the easiest way to go about fixing something that doesn't need to be there, and also kind of addressing the concerns that we have for reusing that property.
More broadly, do we want to take an amendment to that to council to just fix that permanently?
That's what we're saying, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
yeah,
misunderstood
we
that
would
part.
start here, I think.
Yeah, it has to start here at planning.
Yeah.
But-
Okay.
so it's not specific to his property, and I actually asked Justin as part of this, let's see if we have minimum acreages for other uses, because I think, again, they're kind of go counter to what we're doing with densifying and mixed use. And apparently there aren't any, because if there were, I'd say let's get rid of minimum acreages for other uses as well. But it sounds like there really aren't any. But I think this would be a good, simple amendment that would fix that problem and help
But-
others.
And of course, we, as a special land use for his use, we would still consider things like traffic, hours, bringing the, I don't know what the condition that parking lot is in.
He's got a parking lot.
Yeah. He of that, which, you know, most people don't.
Yes,
have,
I would
but-
say proceed with a public hearing for that next month. Because
Okay.
it's simple. I don't think
Okay.
it needs a whole lot of.
Very interesting.
And through the chair, I mean, I appreciate knowing that this is a, you know, recognized member of our community, but I also hope we're not getting set up for some sort of showdown over a use that someone doesn't care to conform to. So
No, I'm not suggesting that's a reason to, I just brought it up when I'm tired and to.
No, I understand. I keep hearing that he's posting things on Facebook, and then he's talking to the city, and then he's posting things on Facebook. So at some point, this is more than just not paying attention to details. This is making a choice to push an issue. So
I've talked to him enough. Maybe I
That's-
should friend him, and then I'll be in the know more.
yeah, exactly. I look forward to the conversation. I don't look forward to being set up for some sort of showdown.
I guess, what's the intent if it's more of a community center? I think we got other community centers in town that don't meet this. I mean, why does it have to fall under a religious context if it's just being used, as he's saying, for non-religious and community?
No, he
Well-
does say it's a Jewish community center.
He is framing it as a secondary use, accessory use to his primary of living there, with certain religious activities. I mean, he doesn't call it a synagogue.
Correct.
But within the definition of institutions for religious worship, it does include things like a daycare that are associated with, you know, a church or whatever, meeting rooms and stuff like that. So it's kind of by ordinance. Maybe this came up in the past. I'm not sure, but it's all included. So that's what brings about the special land use. But Otherwise, I think you'd have to go for a rezoning if you wanted a straight community center, but.
Yeah, but it's affiliated with some
Right,
teachings and
right.
classes.
That's true, too.
And
Yeah.
gatherings that are religious-based. I think it's hard to, I think even through RLUIPA and other.
That's a fine line, because you can get AA as a religious-based organization. Do we now prohibit where AA or any meets? You know, I don't know.
AA is religious, I didn't know that.
It's based on a
Based
spiritual.
on, yeah. As are most community-oriented groups or centers, they have some sort of religious basis.
Well, you could also go so far as to make an argument that a yoga studio in certain circumstances could be religious. And, I mean, it
Candlewick shop.
depending on what kind of yoga you're doing, you know?
Well, regardless, I do think that, that whatever the use is going to be, I do think that the amendment is something worth talking about.
Yeah.
And I think that's.
I think
we
it's a
should-
holdover from 1960 zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
Basically. Okay.
Thanks for the clarification.
Any update on the master plan?
Yes, we are, Hamilton Anderson is now busy compiling the recommendations after a lot of public feedback. And so they're hoping for plan adoption in July, but before that, they'll come before this board with some, draft recommendations. Also, the steering committee will meet one more time, and then I think we are talking about potentially having a joint meeting between all the boards that were involved, so the Planning Commission, FES, the Sustainability Committee, Council, everyone in one room, because everyone did touch this plan, DDA, everyone, so.
So would all of that happen in June then?
It would all happen in June, yeah. Yeah.
Any tentative dates?
Ample notice.
I will
Traveling?
Summer.
I will send those dates tomorrow.
Okay,
It's looking like end of the month,
okay.
End of June.
but not right up against 4th of July, because that can be busy, but.
What does the June agenda look like?
As of right now, I can think of 3 public hearings. So if we are interested in dividing, no, all in one night.
Well, not if we're going to have another meeting on the master plan separately.
Yeah.
It's already 2 meetings in June.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to starting at 6 again, so that way we can have, I think 6 o'clock start time helps mitigate these 11 o'clock nights.
Okay. Sounds good.
As long as everyone can make it.
Okay. Yeah, I can in June. We have a board meeting. So.
And would dinner
I
be
might not
provided?
be at the June meeting.
Oh, fun. Awesome. Thanks.
I was going to decide if I can get a babysitter. My husband said it goes about it.
One will likely be the medical marijuana facility that was here in January.
Oh, good.
So it's probably a good idea to start at 6 o'clock.
All right, so
Don't
plan
they know
on
how to use
6
the
p.m.
stove yet? Can't they do it?
Yes, I don't know that I'll be able to make that, but we'll have Kate chair. Score. All right. Anything else?
That's it.
Don't bring that
I have just one little thing. For that meeting, Marty and I are both in Lansing at a conference.
Dope.
So we are going to have to get, we're already looking at it, and talk to the city manager about getting a recording secretary to fill in when neither one of us are available.
Do we contract Cheryl Lynn back for a night? Just because she's familiar with it.
Actually,
Maybe.
yeah.
She's local and, for
And I want to say hi to Cheryl.
$100 in a case of beer, she may be.
Not if we go till 11.
Sounds like a deal.
Yeah, we don't know how, we talked about Amy, who's our new person up at the front. We don't know if she has experience,
Someone at the court?
possibly.
Okay.
So,
All
we
right.
just want to let you know because we've got a couple things that conflict.
All right. Anything else? Peace out.
Barb, I have a question for you, completely not related to the planning commission.
Hold on, stop the meeting.